Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the cold winter of a Roman wall in Britain. The air is sharp and bites at your nose. The sun is gone, leaving only a pale grey sky. You can hear the wind whistling through the cracks in the stone. It smells like wet earth and old wood. Your fingers are starting to feel stiff from the chill. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing on the very edge of the world. At least, it feels that way to you tonight. Behind you, to the south, the world is full of roads, cities, and the warm homes of the empire. But in front of you, to the north, there is only the wild. There are dark woods, tall hills, and the cold that seems to live in the ground itself. You are a soldier of Rome, and you are standing on a great wall made of stone. This wall is your home, your job, and your protector. The sun has just finished sinking. The sky is the color of a bruised plum, dark purple and gray. There is no warmth left in the light. You can feel the temperature dropping with every breath you take. It is that time of year when the autumn is turning into winter. The ground is hard, and the puddles in the courtyard of the fort are starting to turn into thin sheets of ice. They look like broken glass in the fading light. You pull your heavy wool cloak tighter around your body. This cloak is a large, thick circle of cloth called a piannula. It is dyed a dark, earthy color, like the bark of a tree. The wool is thick and coarse. It has a smell that you have grown to love. It smells of wood smoke, old rain, and the natural oil of the sheep. When you pull the hood up over your helmet, the world becomes a bit quieter. The thick wool covers your ears and keeps the biting wind away from your neck. You can feel the weight of the cloak on your shoulders. It is a heavy, comforting weight, like a warm hand resting on you. You take a slow step forward. Your boots make a dull thud on the stone walkway. The top of the wall is wide enough for a few men to walk side by side. But tonight, it is just you and the wind. The stone beneath you is grey and rough. It was cut from the hills nearby by men just like you. You can see the marks of the chisels in the rock if you look closely. Each stone was placed there with care. This wall was built to last forever. It stretches out into the distance, following the curves of the land like a giant stone snake sleeping on the hills. The wind is the loudest thing out here. It comes from the north, traveling over miles of empty moors and frozen marshes. It does not have anything to stop it until it hits this wall. It moans as it passes through the gaps in the battlements. Battlements are the high parts of the wall that you can hide behind. They look like giant teeth against the sky. The wind rushes through them, making a sound like a low whistle. It tries to find any opening in your clothes. It looks for the gap between your scarf and your helmet. It tries to sneak under your cloak. You learn to tuck yourself in, making yourself small against the cold. You reach into a small leather pouch that hangs from your belt. Inside, your fingers find a small, flat piece of wood. It is about the size of your palm. This is a tessera. It is a very simple thing, just a thin slice of wood with a word scratched into it. But this little piece of wood is very important. It has the watchword for the night. Without this word, you are just a stranger in the dark. You rub your thumb over the wood. It feels smooth and slightly oily from the touch of many hands. This is your connection to the rest of the army. It is a sign that you belong here, that you are part of the great machine that guards the frontier. This wall was not just built to keep people out. The Roman leaders wanted to control everyone who moved through these lands. They wanted to see who was carrying goods to sell and who was moving from one village to another. By building this wall, the Romans made sure that everything had to pass through their gates. It was a way to bring order to a wild place. You stop for a moment at a corner of the wall. You lean your arms against the cold stone. The rock is freezing, and you can feel the chill of it even through your thick sleeves. You look out into the north. It is a vast, empty space. There are no city lights here. There are no lanterns in windows. There is only the dark. You can see the shapes of the hills, looking like giant animals, huddling together against the storm. Somewhere out there are forests of oak and pine. You can hear the trees. When the wind blows hard, the forest makes a sound like the crashing of the sea. It is a deep, rushing noise that fills the air. In the silence of the night, you listen to your own breathing. It is steady and slow. You see your breath come out in a soft white puff. It hangs in the air for a second, a tiny cloud of warmth in the freezing night, before the wind sweeps it away. It reminds you that you are a living, breathing thing in a world of cold stone and ice. You feel a sense of pride. You are the watchman. You are the one who stays awake so that others can dream. Down below you, inside the fort, you can see the life of the army. The fort is a big rectangle of stone buildings. You can see the orange flickers of light from the braziers. A brazier is a metal basket or pan that holds burning coals. They are placed in the hallways and near the doors to give a little bit of light and a tiny bit of warmth. The smoke from the fires rises up into the night air. It smells of peat, the dried, mossy earth that the locals dig from the ground. It has a thick, sweet, earthy smell. It is different from the smell of wood. It is the smell of the brutish winter. You can hear the sounds of the fort settling down for the night. You hear the distant clatter of a metal pot. You hear the low murmur of voices from the barracks where the other soldiers are resting. They are probably sitting on their wooden bunks, cleaning their gear or telling stories about their homes in the sun. Some of them come from places where the sun is hot and the sea is blue. For them, this cold is a strange and frightening thing. But here on the wall, you all face it together. You adjust the strap of your helmet. The helmet is made of iron and brass. It has large flaps that cover your cheeks. These flaps are lined with soft leather, which feels cool against your face. The chin strap is a simple leather cord tied in a knot. The helmet is heavy, and it makes your neck ache after a few hours, but it is also a comfort. It feels like a solid shell around your head. It protects you not just from enemies, but from the rain and the wind. You look at your spear, which you lean against the wall. The wooden shaft is made of ash. It is strong and flexible. The iron head of the spear is polished and sharp. Even in the dim light, it catches the faint glow of the stars. You touch the wood of the shaft. It is dry and hard. It has been smoothed by the grip of your hands over many months. This spear is more than a weapon. It is a tool. Sometimes, you use it like a walking stick to help you stay steady on the slippery stones. Under your cloak, you wear a tunic made of local British wool. This wool is famous because it is very thick and helps keep the rain out. Even people in the big city of Rome want to buy British wool because it is so good at beating the cold. It feels a bit scratchy against your skin, but you do not mind. The itch is a small price to pay for the warmth it provides. The stars are very bright tonight because there are no big cities nearby. The sky is filled with thousands of tiny, sparkling lights. They look like salt spilled on a black cloth. You do not know the names of all the stars, but you know the patterns they make. You watch them move slowly across the sky. They are your clock. When the big cluster of stars reaches the top of the tower, you know that your shift is halfway over. The silence out here is very deep. It is not a scary silence, but a heavy one. It feels as if the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for the spring. You think about the grass under the snow. You think about the small flowers that will bloom in a few months. But for now, everything is still. The moss on the stones is frozen. The water in the buckets is turning to ice. Even the wind seems to get tired sometimes, dropping down to a soft whisper before it gathers its strength again. You begin to walk again. It is important to keep your blood moving. You walk to the next tower and then back again. Your boots make a rhythmic sound, thump, thump, thump. It is a comforting sound. It tells you that you are still moving, still doing your job. You look at the dark shape of the wall extending away from you. It is a line of safety. As long as you are here, as long as you are watching, the world behind you is safe. You feel the cold air move across your eyes. It makes them water a little bit. You blink and wipe the moisture away with the back of your woolen glove. The gloves are simple, with no fingers, just a hole for your thumb. They are scratchy, but they keep the worst of the frost from your hands. You grip your spear again and look out into the dark. The first hour of your watch is nearly done. You have settled into the rhythm of the night. The initial shock of the cold has passed, and now your body has accepted it. You are part of the wall now. You are part of the stone and the wind. You take another deep breath of the cold, clean air and continue your walk. The night is long, but you are ready for it. You are the watchman, and this is your world. You stop walking for a moment and stand near one of the stone pillars. The wind has picked up, and it carries a sharp, biting cold that feels like 1,000 tiny needles against your skin. You feel a shiver start at the base of your neck and run all the way down your back. To fight the chill, you reach up and pull your heavy wool cloak tighter. This cloak is your best friend on a night like this. It is a large, thick piece of cloth called a sagum. It is shaped like a big square, and it is made of the thickest wool you have ever felt. As you pull the edges of the cloak together, you feel the weight of it. It is not a light, airy thing. It is heavy and solid. When you wrap it around your shoulders, it feels like you are putting on a suit of soft, warm armor. The wool is a deep, dark brown, the color of the wet earth at the bottom of a forest. It is not a pretty color, but it is a strong one. It does not show the dirt or the soot from the fires. It is made to work, just like you. The wool feels scratchy against your neck. It is not the soft kind of cloth you might find in a rich person's house in the city. This wool is rough and tough. If you look closely at the threads, you can see tiny bits of dried grass and small knots in the weave. But the best thing about this wool is the smell. It smells like a sheep. It has a thick, oily scent that reminds you of the animals standing in the rain. This oil is called lanolin. It is a natural grease that comes from the sheep's skin. The people who made this cloak did not wash all the oil out on purpose. Because of this oil, the cloak is nearly waterproof. When the rain falls or the mist rolls in, the water does not soak into the cloth. Instead, it forms tiny beads on the surface and rolls off, leaving you dry and warm inside. You reach for the large metal pin that holds the cloak together at your right shoulder. This pin is called a fibula. It is made of bronze, and it is shaped like a heavy, curved bow. It works a bit like a modern safety pin, but it is much larger and stronger. You feel the cold metal against your fingers as you check the point. You make sure it is pushed deep through the thick layers of wool so the cloak will not slip while you are walking. The bronze has turned a bit green from the damp air of Britain, but it is still strong. This little piece of metal is what keeps your warmth from escaping into the night. The cloak is so long that it reaches all the way down to your knees. When you stand still, it hangs around you like a heavy bell. It traps the heat from your body inside a small, private pocket of air. You can feel that air getting warmer with every minute. It is a wonderful feeling. While the world outside is freezing and the wind is howling, you are tucked away in your own little house made of wool. You tuck your hands inside the folds of the cloth, crossing your arms over your chest. Your fingers, which were starting to turn blue from the cold, begin to tingle as the warmth returns to them. There is a historical fact that many people forget. The cloaks made here in Britain were famous all across the Roman world. Even people who lived far away in the hot sun of Italy or of the sands of Egypt wanted to buy a British cloak. They called it the Burrus Britannicus. It was known as the best waterproof coat money could buy. You feel a small sense of pride knowing that you are wearing something so well made. Even though you are far from home, you are protected by the skill of the local people who spun this wool and wove this cloth on their big wooden looms. You stand there in the silence for a long time. You do not move. You do not speak. You just listen to the sound of your own heart beating. The world is very quiet now. Even the wind has died down for a few seconds. In this silence, you can hear the tiny sounds of the night. You hear the soft clink of your metal armor moving against the bronze pin of your cloak. You hear the rustle of the wool as you breathe in and out. This is a moment of deep reflection. You think about how amazing it is that a simple piece of cloth can be the difference between life and death. Without this wool, the cold would sap your strength in an hour. With it, you can stand here all night, a steady guard on the wall. You notice how the cloak changes the way you move. Because it is so heavy and thick, you cannot move quickly. You have to be slow and careful. You walk with a heavy, steady pace. Each step is deliberate. You feel like a mountain moving through the dark. The weight of the wool on your shoulders makes you stand up straighter. It reminds you of your duty. You are not just a man in a coat. You are a soldier of the empire. And you are the shield that protects the lands behind you. You look down at the hem of the cloak. It is slightly frayed from rubbing against your boots and the rough stones of the wall. There are small stains near the bottom from the mud of the parade ground. Each mark is a memory. This stain is from the day you marched through the marsh to fetch wood. That fray is from the time you snagged it on a wooden cart. The cloak is a map of your life here on the frontier. It has been with you through the autumn rains and the early frosts. It has been your blanket when you slept in the tents and your shield when you stood in the wind. The wind returns, blowing a fresh gust of cold air from the north. It hits the front of your cloak, but the thick wool stands firm. You feel the pressure of the wind, but you do not feel the cold. The wool breaks the force of the gale. You pull the hood up over your head again. The hood is a simple triangle of cloth sewn onto the neck of the cloak. It is deep and wide. When you pull it forward, it creates a little tunnel for your eyes to look through. It cuts out the sight of the grey stone to your left and right, forcing you to look straight ahead into the dark. Inside the hood, the sound of the wind changes. It becomes a low, muffled roar, like the sound of the sea in a shell. It makes you feel very far away from everything. You are in your own world of wool and warmth. You take a deep breath. The air inside the hood is warm from your own breath. It smells of the lanolin and the faint, lingering scent of the wood smoke from the barracks fire you sat by earlier. It is a cozy, comforting smell. It makes you feel safe. You adjust your grip on your spear. The wood is cold, but because you have your cloak wrapped around you, your arms are warm. You feel a sense of balance. The heavy cloak on your back and the long spear in your hand make you feel solid. You are like the stones of the wall themselves. You are part of the landscape. You imagine what you must look like to someone standing out in the dark, looking up at the wall. They would see a tall, dark shadow, wrapped in a heavy robe, standing perfectly still against the stars. You are a sign that Rome is here, and Rome is awake. You begin to walk again, your heavy cloak swaying around your legs. The sound of the wool rubbing against itself is a soft, rhythmic stash. It is a soothing sound, like the breath of a sleeping giant. You walk slowly, feeling the weight of the wool shift with every step. You are warm. You are protected. You are ready for the rest of your watch. The night is still young, and the cold is still deep, but you have your wool, and that is enough. You turn away from the pillar and begin to walk again. Your destination is the next small tower, which sits like a square tooth on the line of the wall. The path beneath your feet is narrow but solid. This is the walkway, a flat road made of stone that sits high above the ground. To your left is the drop down into the fort, where the fires are glowing. To your right is the long, steep drop into the lands of the north. You are walking on a ribbon of rock that cuts the world in two. The stones under your boots are not smooth like the floors of a palace. They are rough and uneven. Some are cracked from the frost, and others have small patches of dried moss clinging to their edges. In the dark, you have to be careful where you step. You feel the ground through the soreness of your boots. These are your caligae. They are special shoes made of many layers of tough leather. They are not like the boots people wear today. They are more like very strong sandals that wrap all the way up to your ankles. The leather is thick and has been soaked in oil to keep it soft, but it is still firm enough to protect your feet from the sharp rocks. As you walk, you hear a very specific sound. It is a metallic click-clack every time your foot hits the stone. This sound comes from the bottom of your boots. The leather soles are filled with dozens of small iron studs called clavi. These are like little round-headed nails hammered into the leather. They are very important for a soldier on the wall. They act like teeth, gripping the stone so you do not slip on the ice or the wet moss. Without these iron nails, the smooth stones would be as slippery as a frozen lake. You can feel the vibration of the metal hitting the rock move up through your legs. It is a steady, rhythmic sound that keeps you company in the dark. Click-clack, click-clack. It is the sound of Rome walking on the edge of the world. You look out to your right, over the edge of the battlements. The land out there is called the barbaricum. It is the land where the Roman laws do not reach. In the moonlight, you can see the rolling hills. They look like the waves of a frozen sea, rising and falling into the distance. There are no straight lines out there. Everything is wild and curving. The only straight thing is the wall you are standing on. It is a perfect line of human logic cutting through the messy beauty of nature. You think about how much work it took to put this here. Here is something to think about. This wall was built by the hands of men just like you. It stretches for 80 Roman miles, from one side of the island to the other. That is a very long way to carry heavy stones. It was not built by slaves or machines. It was built by the 3 great legions of the army. These were groups of thousands of soldiers who put down their spears and picked up shovels and hammers. They dug the ditches, they cut the stone, and they mixed the lime to make the glue that holds the rocks together. Every step you take covers ground that was built with sweat and hard work. When you touched the wall, you were touching the work of your friends and the men who came before you. You reach a part of the wall where the wind blows even harder. This is a high point on the ridge. From here, you can see the tiny lights of other forts far away to the east and west. They look like fallen stars sitting on the horizon. Each of those lights is a fire where another watchman is standing just like you. It makes you feel less alone. You are part of a long chain of eyes, all looking into the dark, all keeping the world safe. If you saw a large fire at the next fort, you would know there was trouble, and you would light your own fire to pass the message along. It is a giant system of silent talking that stretches 4 miles. You stop walking and lean your weight against the stone. This is your moment of reflection. You look down at the ground on the north side of the wall. Just below the stone, there is a deep, wide ditch. The soldiers dug it out of the hard earth and rock. It is there to make it even harder for anyone to climb up to you. Beyond the ditch, the land is empty. There are no bushes or trees close to the wall. The soldiers cut them all down so that no one could hide in the shadows. This empty space is called the clear zone. It is a belt of nothingness that surrounds the fort. In the silence, you realize how much the land has been changed. Where there was once a forest, there is now a cleared field. Where there was once a path, there is now a giant wall. The wind carries the scent of the heather from the hills. Heather is a small, hardy plant with purple flowers that grows all over the moors. In the winter, the flowers are gone, but the plants stay, turning into a sea of dark, wiry branches. The smell is dry and a little bit like old honey. It is a wild smell, very different from the smell of the rosemary or lavender that grows in the gardens far to the south. It reminds you that you are a long way from the center of the world. You are at the very limit of what men have built. You look back at your boots. The iron nails are a bit dull now from all the walking. You think about the man in the fort whose job it is to fix them. He's the capsarius, or sometimes the blacksmith's helper. He sits in a small room with a pile of leather and a bag of iron studs. When your nails wear down or fall out, he hammers new ones in. It is a small detail, a tiny piece of micro-history, but without those nails, the whole army would be sliding around on the mud. A soldier is only as good as his feet, and his feet are only as good as the iron in his sawless. The moon comes out from behind a cloud. It is a pale, silver moon that makes the whole world look like it is made of pewter. The stones of the wall turn white, and the shadows in the ditch below turn pitch black. You can see the frost sparkling on the grass far below. It looks like someone has scattered tiny diamonds across the dark ground. The beauty of it takes your breath away for a second. It is a cold beauty, hard and sharp, but it is beautiful all the same. You feel a sense of peace. The world is quiet, the wall is strong, and you are doing your job. You begin to walk again, heading toward the small tower. The click-clack of your boots returns. You feel the cold air moving through the gaps in the stones. You notice the way the wall follows the ground. It does not go around the hills. It goes right over the top of them. The Roman engineers were very proud people. They did not want to let a little thing like a mountain stand in their way. They made the wall climb up the steepest cliffs and drop down into the deepest valleys. It is a symbol of power. It says that the people who built this can do anything. As you get closer to the tower, you see the dark shape of the door. The tower is a small building that sits on the wall. It has 2 floors. The bottom floor is a place for storage, and the top floor is where the soldiers can sit and stay dry when they are not on the very top. You can see a tiny sliver of light coming from the door. It is the glow of a small lamp. It is a sign of warmth, a sign that there are other people nearby. You are not just a lone man in the dark. You are a part of a community. You take one last look at the hills before you reach the tower. The mist is starting to rise from the valleys. It looks like white smoke crawling across the ground. It hides the bottom of the hills, making them look like they are floating in a grey sea. It is a strange, ghostly sight, but you are not afraid. You have the stone beneath your feet and the wool of your cloak around your shoulders. You have your iron-studded boots and your sharp spear. You are a Roman soldier, and the night is yours to guard. You take a slow, deep breath, enjoying the coldness in your lungs, and continue your steady walk along the top of the world. You reach the corner where the tower meets the main stone wall. Here, there is a small area that is tucked away from the direct bite of the wind. As you turn the corner, the air changes. It is no longer just cold and empty. There is a new scent in the air. It is a thick, heavy, and earthy smell. It is the smell of a fire. You take a deep breath, and you can feel the dry smoke at the back of your throat. It is a comforting smell. It is the smell of the night shift. In front of you, sitting on the stone floor, is a metal basket. This is a brazier. It is made of thick bars of iron that have been hammered into a bowl shape. It sits on 3 sturdy legs. Inside the basket, there is a glow that makes your heart feel a little lighter. It is not a big, roaring fire like the ones in the great halls of the south. It is a small, quiet fire made of glowing red coals. These coals are not made from wood. There are not many big trees left near the wall, because the army used them all to build the forts. Instead, you were burning something the local people call peat. Peat is a very special kind of fuel. It is basically dried, mossy earth. The local British people go out into the wet, soggy moors with long, flat spades. They cut the ground into thick, rectangular bricks. These bricks are dark, almost black, and they are very heavy because they are full of water. The people stack them up in the wind for months until they are as dry as a bone. When you put a brick of peat on the fire, it does not flame up quickly like dry pine. Instead, it catches slowly. It smoulders. It glows with a deep, orange heat that lasts for a very long time. This is perfect for a watchman. You do not want a bright flame that tells everyone where you are. You want a steady, hidden heat that keeps your toes from freezing. You step closer to the brazier. You can feel the warmth starting to reach out to you. It hits your shins first, soaking through the thick wool of your trousers. You stand there for a moment, just watching the way the heat moves. A tiny blue flame dances on top of one of the peat bricks. It looks like a little ghost. The smoke rises in a thin, grey ribbon. It twists and turns as it reaches the top of the wall, where the wind catches it and whisks it away into the dark. You reach out your hands, palms facing the glow. Your gloves are old, and the wool is thin at the fingertips. You can feel the heat tingle against your skin. It is a sharp, prickly feeling at first, like your hands are waking up from a long sleep. You rub your palms together. The heat feels like a liquid, pouring over your skin and washing away the stiffness of the night. You close your eyes for just a second. In the dark behind your eyelids, the world of ice and stone disappears. For a moment, it feels like you are back in a warm kitchen, or sitting by a hearth in a sunny land. Here is a fact about life on the wall. The Roman army was very clever about keeping warm. They did not just rely on fires. Inside the main buildings of the fort, they built floors that were raised up on little pillars of brick. They would light a big fire at one end, and the hot air would flow under the floor and up through the walls in hollow tiles. This was called a hypocaust. It was like having a giant heater under your feet. But out here on the wall, you do not have a heated floor. You only have your wool, your spirit, and this little basket of glowing peat. It makes you realize how much you value the small things. A handful of warm earth is worth more than a bag of gold coins when the frost is thick on the ground. You look down at the peat bricks. They have a strange texture. They look like compressed layers of old grass, roots, and tiny bits of ancient wood. When they burn, they leave behind a very fine, white ash. This ash is as soft as flour. You see a small pile of it gathering at the bottom of the brazier. It reminds you of the snow that will surely come later in the night. You take a small iron rod, a fire poker, and gently nudge the bricks. A shower of tiny orange sparks flies up into the air. They look like fireflies. They dance for a second before they turn black and vanish into the wind. The silence here is different than the silence on the open walkway. Here, the sound of the wind is muffled by the stone tower. You can hear the fire. It does not crackle or pop like wood. It makes a low, steady hissing sound, like a giant breathing very softly. It is a very peaceful noise. You find yourself matching your own breathing to the rhythm of the fire. In and out, in and out. The warmth on your face feels like a soft mask. It relaxes the muscles around your eyes. You feel the tension of the watch leaving your shoulders. You look at the soot on the side of the brazier. Soot is the black powder that the smoke leaves behind. It has coated the iron bars, making them look even darker. You notice that some of the soot has got onto your cloak. You do not brush it off. On the wall, everyone smells like peat smoke. It is the scent of the Legion. If you walked into a tavern in a city far away, people would know where you came from just by the smell of your clothes. It is a smell of toughness and survival. You think about the micro-history of this fire. Someone had to dig this peat. Someone had to carry it in a heavy wicker basket to the fort. A young boy, perhaps the son of a soldier, was probably paid a few copper coins to stack these bricks in the storage shed. Every bit of warmth you feel is the result of someone else's hard work. It makes you feel connected to the people living around the fort. You are protecting them, and they are providing the fuel that keeps you going. It is a simple trade, but it is the thing that keeps the empire alive in this cold, northern place. You take a small piece of hard, salted meat from your belt pouch. You hold it near the heat of the brazier for a minute. The warmth softens the fat and makes the meat smell salty and good. It is a small luxury. You chew it slowly, enjoying the way the flavor fills your mouth. Food always tastes better when you are cold and tired. The salt makes you thirsty, but you know you have a flask of water waiting for you back at the guardroom. For now, the warm meat and the warm fire are enough. The moon is high now, and it reflects off the surface of the white ash in the brazier. It creates a strange silver and orange light that plays across the stones of the tower. You look at the shadows on the wall. They look long and thin. You move your hand, and your shadow moves with you, a giant dark shape against the grey rock. You feel like a ghost in an old story. You stand in silence for a long time, just reflecting on the night. You think about how strange it is that humans can live in such a place. The wind wants to freeze you. The ground is hard as iron. The sky is vast and empty. And yet, here you are. You have built a wall. You have brought fire from the earth. You have made a home in the middle of a wasteland. You feel a deep sense of strength. You are not just surviving the winter. You are mastering it. The warmth of the peat has done its job. Your blood feels moving and fluid again. Your fingers are nimble. You feel a fresh wave of energy. You know you cannot stay by the fire forever. The rest of the wall needs to be checked. The other soldiers are counting on you to keep your eyes on the dark. You take one last, deep breath of the smoky air. You store the warmth in your bones, tucking it away like a treasure. You pick up your spear from where it was leaning against the cold stone. The wood feels less freezing now that it has been near the fire. You step out from the shelter of the tower and back onto the open walkway. The wind hits you immediately, but you don't flinch. You have the heat of the peat smoke inside you. You walk back into the dark, the click-clack of your iron-studded boots sounding out once more. The fire stays behind you, a small orange eye watching your back as you head into the deep, blue night. You walk away from the warmth of the fire, feeling the cold air wrap around your legs once more. As you move along the stone path, you notice a small, dull ache in your right foot. You decide to stop for a moment. There is a small stone bench built into the side of the wall, meant for soldiers to take a quick rest. You sit down heavily, leaning your spear against the grey rock. You reach down to check your boots. On a night as cold and wet as this, your feet are the most important part of your body. If they get too wet or too cold, you cannot do your job. You might even get sick, and a sick soldier is no use to anyone on the wall. You lift your foot and rest it on your knee. In the dim light of the moon, you look at your boots. These are not the open sandals you wore during the hot summer months. Those summer shoes, the ones with all the holes and thin straps, are tucked away in your wooden chest back in the barracks. For the brushish winter, you wear something much stronger. These are called calces. They are heavy, enclosed boots made of thick cow leather. They cover your whole foot and go up past your ankles. They are built to keep out the mud, the slush, and the biting frost of the north. You run your fingers over the leather. It feels cold and slightly damp on the outside, but it is still firm. You feel the laces, which are also made of thin strips of leather. You pull them a little tighter, feeling the boot hug your foot. It is important that the fit is snug. If the boot is too loose, It will rub against your skin as you walk. After a few miles, that rubbing would turn into a sore, red blister. You cannot afford to have blisters when you have to walk the wall 4 hours. You make sure the knot is tied tight and tucked away so it does not catch on any stones. The leather of your boots has a very strong smell. It is a mix of old earth, salt, and something very fatty. This is because of how you take care of them. Every few days, when you are off duty, you sit by the fire and rub animal fat into the leather. This fat is called tallow. It usually comes from a cow or a sheep. It is a thick, white grease that feels slippery between your fingers. You rub it in until the leather turns dark and shiny. This grease fills the tiny pores in the skin, making the boot waterproof. You can see the water from the mist sitting on top of the leather in little round drops, like tiny pearls. The grease is keeping the wetness out. It is a simple trick, but it is what keeps your toes dry and warm. Here is a historical fact that might surprise you. Even though you are a brave soldier of the Empire, you have to pay for your own clothes and boots. Every few months, the army leaders take a little bit of money out of your pay to cover the cost of your gear. Because of this, you take very good care of your boots. You do not want to spend your hard-earned coins on a new pair if you can make these ones last. You treat the leather like it is made of gold. You clean off the mud with a stiff brush and never leave them too close to a hot fire, or the leather will get hard and crack like an eggshell. You move your toes inside the boot. You are wearing thick socks made of heavy, undyed wool. They are scratchy, but they are very warm. You can feel the wool cushioning your feet against the hard iron studs in the soles. You remember the click-clack sound your boots make on the stone. Those studs, the clavey, are hammered deep into the thick leather soles. You reach down and feel the bottom of your boot. The metal heads of the studs are cold and rough. You check to see if any have fallen out. If you lose too many, you will lose your grip on the icy parts of the wool. It feels like they are all still there, firm and solid. You sit in silence for a moment, just breathing and looking at your feet. This is your moment of reflection. You think about how many miles these boots have walked. They have carried you along the dusty roads of the south. They have stood in the mud of the parade ground while you practiced with your sword. They have climbed the steep hills and stepped over the small streams that run through the woods. These boots have seen everything you have seen. They are like a part of your own body. You feel a strange kind of thanks for the animal that gave its skin so that you could walk in comfort. In the fort below, there is a man whose whole job is to look after shoes. He's the suitor, the army cobbler. His workshop is a small, cramped room filled with the smell of new leather and iron. He has big wooden blocks shaped like feet, and he uses them to stretch the leather into the right shape. Whenever you see him, he's surrounded by piles of old sawless and bags of iron nails. He's a very busy man because the land of Britain is very hard on boots. The constant rain and the sharp rocks mean that there is always something to fix. You like the cobbler. He's a quiet man with strong, stained hands who understands the value of a good pair of shoes. You look out into the dark again. The mist is getting thicker. It is starting to swirl around the base of the wall like a white river. You know that if you were wearing thin shoes, your feet would be freezing by now. The dampness would creep in through the seams and soak your socks. Once your feet are wet, the cold moves up your legs and into your whole body. It makes you feel tired and weak, but your boots are holding the line. They are like a tiny fort for your feet. Inside the leather and the wool, your toes are safe and snug. You stand up from the stone bench. You pick up your spear and feel the weight of it. You take a few steps, testing the tightness of your laces. The boots feel good. They feel like a part of you. You can feel the iron studs biting into the stone, giving you a steady, safe footing. The ache in your foot has gone away now that you have adjusted the straps. You feel ready to keep going. You think about the long night ahead. There are many more miles to walk before the sun comes up. There are many more stairs to climb and many more corners to turn. But you are not worried. You have your heavy wool cloak. You have the memory of the peat fire. And you have your strong leather boots. You are well equipped for the night shift. You are a soldier who knows how to survive. The wind whistles through the gaps in your helmet, but your feet stay warm on the cold stone. You begin to walk again, heading toward the next stretch of the wall. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound is steady and sure. It is a comforting sound in the vast, empty night. You watch your shadow move along the wall in front of you, a dark shape in a world of grey and silver. You take a slow, deep breath, feeling the cold air fill your lungs, and continue your watch. Your boots are ready for the miles, and so are you. The wall is long, but your spirit is strong, and your path is clear. You find yourself stepping into the small room inside the watchtower. It is a tiny square space, built with the same thick stone as the wall itself. Here, the air is still. The wind cannot reach you, and for a few minutes, you can let your guard down just a little bit. On a small wooden table sits a simple bowl and a spoon. You have been thinking about this meal for the last hour. When the air is this cold, your body uses up its energy very fast just to stay warm. You feel a deep, hollow hunger in your belly. You sit down on a low stool and pull the bowl towards you. The bowl is made of a dark, smooth wood. It is probably beech or oak. It is warm to the touch because of the food inside. You wrap both of your hands around the outside of the bowl, letting the heat soak into your palms. You do not pick up the spoon yet. You just sit there, feeling the warmth. This bowl is one of your most prized things. Every soldier has his own. You have carved a small mark on the bottom, a tiny X, so that you know it is yours. It has been dropped, scratched, and carried across many miles, but it is still solid. Inside the bowl is a thick, steaming porridge. The Romans called this food pools. It is the most important part of a soldier's life. While some people think that soldiers eat mostly meat, that is not really true. A Roman soldier lives on grain. Whether it is wheat or a hardy type of grain called spelt, it is what keeps the army moving. Every day, you and the 7 other men in your tank group are given a heavy bag of whole grain. You have to grind it yourselves using a small hand mill made of heavy, round stones. It is hard work, and it takes a long time, but it means the food is always fresh. You pick up the wooden spoon. It is simple and wide. You dip it into the bowl and lift a bit of the porridge. The steam rises up and hits your face, smelling of damp earth and toasted bread. The pulse is thick and heavy. It is not like the thin, watery soup some people eat. This is solid food. It has been cooked slowly in a bronze pot over the fire until the grain has soaked up all the water and become soft. To give it more flavor, someone has added a few small pieces of salted fat and some dried herbs. It tastes of salt, smoke, and the goodness of the fields. As you take the first bite, you feel the heat travel all the way down to your stomach. It feels like a small fire starting inside you. You chew slowly. The grain has a bit of a pop to it, a firm texture that tells you it is full of strength. This is a very old way of eating. Even the first people who built the city of Rome, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, ate this same kind of grain porridge. It is the food of builders and workers. It is the food of the people who make things happen. Here is a historical fact about your meal. The grain you are eating was probably grown in the sunny fields of the south, or perhaps in the big farms of Middle Britain. The Roman army is very good at moving things. They bring in thousands of tons of grain every year to feed the men on the wall. They store it in huge buildings called horia, which are granaries. These buildings have floors raised off the ground to keep the grain dry and away from the mice. Without these big stores of food, the wall could not exist. The army would have to go home because they would have nothing to eat. You sit in silence for a long time, just watching the steam rise. This is your moment of reflection. You think about the farmers who grew this grain. You think about the oxen that pulled the plows through the dirt. You think about the sailors who carried the bags across the sea in their wooden ships. It takes a whole world of people to put this one bowl of food in your hands. It makes you feel like you are part of something very big. You are not just a lonely man on a wall. You are the end of a very long line of work and care. The room is very quiet. You can hear the tiny clink of the wooden spoon against the side of the bowl. You can hear the distant, muffled howl of the wind outside the thick stone walls. It makes the room feel even cozier. There is a small oil lamp on the wall, and its little flame flickers in the draught. You watch the shadow of your spoon move across the table. It looks like a slow, dark bird. You find yourself feeling very peaceful. The hunger is going away, replaced by a heavy, comfortable feeling of being full. You notice a small bit of micro-history in your bowl. Among the grains of wheat, you see a tiny, dark seed. It is a bit of wild mustard. Sometimes, when the grain is harvested, little bits of wild plants get mixed in. Instead of being annoying, it adds a tiny bit of spice to the meal. You also see a small, green bit of leek. The soldiers who live in the fort have a small garden area outside the walls where they grow vegetables. They grow cabbage, onions, and leeks to add to their pots. It makes the simple grain feel like a feast. You scrape the last bit of porridge from the bottom of the bowl. You do not want to waste a single grain. In the army, you learn that everything has value. A crust of bread or a spoonful of porridge is a gift. You lick the spoon clean and set it down. You feel different now than you did when you first walked into the room. Your body feels heavier, but in a good way. You feel strong again. The tiredness that was starting to pull at your eyes has moved away. You pick up your water flask and take a small sip. The water is cold, but it tastes clean. It washes away the salt from the porridge. You stand up and stretch your arms high above your head. You can feel your muscles working under your tunic. You feel ready to go back out. The night shift is not over yet, but you have the energy you need to finish it. You look at the empty bowl on the table. It looks lonely now that the steam is gone. You will leave it there for the next man who comes in to take his break. You hope that he enjoys the warmth as much as you did. You pick up your spear and your helmet. The iron of the helmet feels very cold after the warmth of the room, but you don't mind. You know that inside you, the pulse is doing its work. It is turning into the heat that will keep your blood moving and your heart beating. You open the heavy wooden door to the tower. The wind rushes in, trying to push you back, but you are solid. You step back out onto the stone walkway. The air is even colder than it was before, and the sky is a darker shade of blue. But you don't shiver. You feel a warm glow in your stomach that spreads to your fingers and toes. You have been fed. You have been rested. You have been reminded of the world of people who support you. You take a slow, deep breath of the freezing air and begin your walk once more. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound of your boots is the only thing in the dark, and you follow it back into the night. You leave the small, warm room behind and step back into the open air. The first thing you notice is the sound. On a night like this, the wind does not just blow, it talks. It pushes against the high stone walls and the wooden doors of the towers. You walk toward a large wooden gate that stands over one of the main roads passing through the wall. As you get closer, you hear a deep, heavy sound. It is a slow, rhythmic creak croak. It sounds like a large animal waking up from a long sleep. This is the sound of the great wooden gates moving just a tiny bit in their stone sockets. You stop and look up at the gatehouse. It is a massive square of stone that straddles the road. The doors themselves are made of thick oak. Oak is a very hard, heavy wood that grows in the forests of Britain. These doors are so thick that even a group of men with a heavy log could not break them down easily. They are reinforced with bands of black iron that have been hammered into place by the fort's blacksmith. The iron is cold to the touch and has a rough, grainy feel. In the dark, the doors look like giant shadows standing guard over the path. The sound comes again, creak-croak. The wind is pushing against the flat surface of the wood. Even though the doors are bolted shut with a heavy timber beam, there is still a tiny bit of room for them to move. You can hear the wood rubbing against the iron hinges. It is a lonely, tired sound. It reminds you that everything on this wall is under pressure. The stone faces the frost, the men face the dark, and the wood faces the wind. You reach out and place your hand on the oak. It feels as solid as the stone itself. It is frozen and dry, with the texture of deep ridges and valleys under your palm. There is a historical fact about these gates that shows how much the Romans cared about order. These gates were not just for defense, they were for taxes. Every merchant who wanted to bring goods from the north into the province of Britannia had to stop here. They had to wait for the soldiers to open the heavy oak doors, and then they had to pay a small fee to pass. The gates were the taps of the empire, controlling the flow of people and money. Even now, in the middle of the night, the gates are doing their job. They are closed and locked, keeping the world orderly and safe. You stand in the shadow of the gatehouse for a few minutes. This is your moment of reflection. You think about the trees that gave their lives for these doors. These oak trees probably lived for hundreds of years in the forest before the Roman engineers arrived. They were tall and proud, reaching for the sun. Now, they are flat and dark, standing in the cold to protect the people. You feel a sense of respect for the wood. It is still strong, even after being cut and shaped. It still holds the strength of the earth inside it. The wind picks up, and now the sound is not just a creak. It is a low moan that seems to come from deep inside the wood. It is a haunting sound, but it does not make you afraid. You have heard it every night for months. It has become the song of your shift. It tells you that the wall is still standing. If the gates ever stopped creaking, it would mean the wind had died down or the gates had been thrown open. As long as you hear that heavy creak-croak, you know that everything is as it should be. You look at the ground at the base of the doors. You can see a micro-history detail in the threshold. The threshold is the big stone at the bottom of the doorway. There is a deep groove worn into the rock. This groove was made by the iron wheels of hundreds of carts passing through the gate over many years. It is a smooth, curved hollow in the hard stone. It makes you think of all the people who have passed through this spot. You think of the wagons full of wine, the carts carrying grain, and the soldiers marching out to patrol the hills. The wall is a silent witness to all that movement. You notice the iron bolts that hold the bands of metal to the oak. Each bolt has a wide, flat head that was shaped by a hammer. You can see the marks of the hammer blows on the metal. Some man sat at an anvil in the heat of the forge to make these. He probably wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at his work with pride. Now, those bolts are biting deep into the frozen wood, holding the gate together against the winter gale. It is a reminder that the wall is held together by thousands of tiny, well-made things. The wind shifts, and the creaking stops for a moment. In the sudden quiet, you can hear the dry leaves of autumn trapped in the corner of the gateway. They are brown and brittle, and they dance in small circles on the stone. They make a light, scratching sound, like the claws of a tiny animal. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It is a very small sound compared to the moaning of the gates, but in the silence of the night, it sounds very clear. You watch them for a while, feeling the stillness in your own body. You adjust the position of your spear, resting the butt of the wooden shaft on the stone next to the gate. The wood of your spear and the wood of the gate are cousins. They are both parts of the forest used for a purpose. You feel a sense of connection to the materials around you. You are a man of leather, wool, iron, stone, and wood. These are the things that keep you alive. These are the things that make the empire possible in a land where nature wants to turn everything to ice. You look up at the top of the gatehouse. There are wooden battlements up there too, and you can hear them rattling in their frames. Everything is moving just a little bit. The whole wall is like a living thing, shifting and groaning under the weight of the cold. You take a slow breath, and the air tastes of old wood and iron. It is a clean, sharp taste that clears your head. You feel awake and alert. The sound of the gates has a way of keeping you focused. It is a constant reminder that you are standing at a door that must stay shut. You decide it is time to move on. You cannot stay in the shadow of the gate forever. You have to check the rest of the line. You take a step away from the oak doors, and the click-clack of your boots joins the symphony of the night. Behind you, the gate gives one last, long creak croak, as if it is saying goodbye. You walk back onto the main path of the wall, where the wind is waiting for you. As you walk, you think about the morning. In a few hours, the sun will start to peek over the eastern hills. The soldiers of the morning shift will come out, rubbing their eyes and complaining about the cold. They will walk to the gatehouse, lift the heavy timber beam, and push the oak doors open. The creak will be louder then, a triumphant sound as the gates swing wide to let the light in. But for now, the gates stay shut. They are the heavy, groaning shields of the night, and you are their silent partner. You continue your walk, the sound of the wind and the wood following you into the dark. The path ahead is silver under the moon. You feel steady and strong. The creak of the gate stays with you in your mind, a rhythmic pulse that matches your steps. You are the watchman, and the gates are your charge. You will keep them closed. You will keep them safe. You walk on, a solitary figure on the high stone ribbon, as the night moves slowly toward the dawn. You find a quiet spot inside the next tower, tucked away from the biting wind. A single torch is stuck into a metal ring on the wall. The flame is small and orange, casting long, jumping shadows across the stone. You decide this is a good time to check your gear. You reach down and unbuckle your heavy leather belt. This is your cingulum. It is not just a belt to keep your tunic in place. It is a symbol of who you are. To a Roman soldier, his belt is his pride. If a man loses his belt, he loses his honor. You lay the leather strap across your knees, feeling its familiar weight. The belt is made of thick, dark brown leather. It is tough and smells of salt and animal oil. But the most important parts are the metal plates sewn onto the front. These are made of tinned bronze, so they look like silver in the torchlight. You reach into a small bag at your side and pull out a piece of soft, dry cloth. You begin to rub the metal plates. You move your hand in slow, circular motions. The work is boring, but it is a good way to stay focused while you rest your legs. As you polish, the dull grey of the metal begins to shine. You can see the patterns carved into the bronze. Some plates have tiny eagles on them, and others have patterns of swirling leaves. These designs are simple, but they remind you that you are part of a great and organized army. Even out here, in the mud and the cold of Britain, you must look like a soldier of Rome. You want the metal to catch the light, even if it is just the light of a small torch. It makes you feel sharp and ready. There is a historical fact about this belt that every soldier knows. Hanging from the front of the belt is a skirt made of 4 or 5 long leather straps. Each strap is covered in small metal discs and ends in a heavy bronze weight. When you walk, these straps bounce against each other and make a constant jingle-jangle sound. This sound is very famous. It tells everyone that a soldier is coming. It is the sound of authority. Even in the dark, people can hear the voice of the legion before they see your face. You focus on the micro-history of the leather. You notice a small scratch near the buckle. You remember getting that scratch when you were helping to load a heavy wooden crate onto a wagon last month. The wood was rough and caught the leather. You rub a little bit of fat into the scratch with your thumb, watching the mark disappear into the dark grain of the skin. Every mark on your gear tells a story of a day's work. This belt has been with you through rain, snow, and the hot dust of summer. It is a record of your life as a watchman. The tower is very still. This is your moment of reflection. You watch the small flame of the torch. It eats the air and gives off a tiny bit of warmth. You think about the man who made this belt. He was probably a craftsman in a busy workshop, surrounded by the smell of tanning hides and the sound of hammers hitting bronze. He made thousands of these, but this one is yours. It protects your middle and carries your sword. It is a simple thing, but it is one of the most important things you own. Without it, you would feel naked and unprepared. The torch makes a soft pop. A pocket of sap in the wood catches fire. A tiny trail of black smoke rises to the ceiling. You finish polishing the last plate and hold the belt up. It gleams in the light, the tinned bronze reflecting the orange glow like a mirror. You feel a sense of satisfaction, even though no one is here to see it. You know your gear is clean. You know you are doing things the right way. You wrap the belt back around your waist and pull the leather strap through the buckle. You feel the familiar squeeze around your middle. It feels like a firm, supportive hug. You reach down and touch the hanging leather straps, making them jingle just once. The sound is bright and clear in the small stone room. You feel more like yourself now. You pick up your spear and stand up, feeling the weight of the bronze plates resting against your thighs. You take one last look around the room. The stone walls are bare and cold, but the light of the torch makes them look a little bit softer. You feel calm and steady. The work of polishing has cleared your mind. You are not thinking about how long the night is, or how cold the wind will be. You are just thinking about your next step. You open the door and step back out into the night. The click-clack of your boots and the jingle of your belt joining together as you continue your watch. The wind has dropped for a moment, leaving the wall in a heavy, frozen silence. You lean your back against the cold stone of a high battlement and look up at the stars. The sky is so clear and dark that it feels as if you could reach out and touch the tiny points of light. As you stand there, your mind begins to wander. You find yourself thinking about a place very different from this windy wall in Britain. You are dreaming of the sun. You are remembering the warm lands far to the south, where most of your fellow soldiers come from. In your mind, you see the dusty roads of Italy or the bright, white shores of the Mediterranean Sea. In those places, the sun is not a weak, pale thing that hides behind grey clouds. It is a great, golden ball that stays in the sky all day. It makes the ground feel hot beneath your feet, even through the thick leather of your boots. You remember the smell of the air there. It does not smell like wet peat and frozen mud. It smells of dried lavender, warm pine trees, and the salt of the blue water. It is a sweet, heavy smell that fills your lungs and makes you feel light. You think about the trees in the south. Instead of the twisted, bare oaks of the British woods, there are tall cypress trees that look like dark green fingers pointing at the sky. There are olive trees with silvery leaves that shimmer in the heat. You remember sitting in the shade of a stone wall, not a wall built for war, but a wall built to hold up a garden. You can almost feel the warmth of the sun-baked rock on your skin. It is a deep, soaking heat that goes right into your bones. It is the kind of heat that makes you want to close your eyes and sleep 4 hours. Here is a historical fact about the men on the wall. The Roman army was made of people from everywhere. On this very wall, there are soldiers from sunny Spain, from the dry plains of North Africa, and from the rolling hills of Gaul, which we now call France. Many of these men had never seen snow before they came to Britain. They had never felt a wind that could turn water into ice. For them, the night shift on the wall is a strange and difficult thing. They carry their memories of the sun like a secret treasure, using them to stay warm when the frost is thick on their helmets. You take a slow, deep breath. The air here is sharp and smells of nothing but cold. You reflect on how far you have traveled. Thousands of miles separate you from the lemon trees and the vineyards. You think about the people back home. At this very moment, they might be sitting outside on a stone terrace, watching the moon rise over a warm sea. They are probably wearing thin linen tunics, not heavy wool cloaks. They do not have to worry about the frost biting their fingers. It feels like you are living in a different world, a world made of iron and shadow, while they live in a world of light. This is your moment of reflection. You realize that even though you are far from the sun, you are bringing the light of Rome to this dark place. The wall is more than just stone. It is a piece of that southern world brought to the north. The way you speak, the way you march, and the laws you follow all come from that warm, distant land. You are like a seed from a sun-loving plant that has been tucked into the cold British soil. You are hardy and strong, and you have learned how to survive even when the sun is just a memory. You think about a micro-history detail of your life back then. You remember a small, red clay cup. It was a piece of terra sigillata, the famous bright red pottery of the empire. It felt smooth and cool in your hand. You would fill it with wine that had been watered down and sweetened with a little bit of honey. You would sit on a wooden bench and watch the lizards darting across the hot stones. That red cup is a world away from the heavy wooden bowl and the iron spoon you use now. But you still have your memories, and they are just as real as the stone you are leaning on. The cold eventually pulls you back from your daydreams. A small gust of wind catches the edge of your cloak and reminds you where you are. The memory of the sun fades, leaving you under the silver light of the British moon. You do not feel sad, though. The memories have done their job. They have given your heart a little bit of warmth to help you get through the next hour of your watch. You feel a sense of balance. You have the strength of the north in your arms and the warmth of the south in your mind. You push yourself away from the stone battlements and stand up straight. Your armor clinks softly, a sharp sound in the still night. You look out over the dark hills one more time. They look peaceful under the stars. You know that you are here to protect that peace. Whether you are in the sun or the snow, your job is the same. You are the watchman, and you are the link between the old world of the sun and the new world of the frontier. You pick up your spear and feel the solid weight of the wood. You take a step, and the click-clack of your boots returns. The sound is grounding. It tells you that you are here. You are awake. And you are ready. You begin to walk again, heading toward the next stretch of the wall. The image of the lemon trees and the blue sea stays in the back of your mind, a small, glowing ember of heat in the middle of the ice. You are a soldier of Rome, and you carry the sun with you wherever you go. The night has grown even deeper, and you can feel the energy from your warm bowl of porridge starting to fade. You need something small to keep you going. You reach into the leather pouch on your belt and pull out a piece of hard, flat bread. This is what the soldiers call bucellatum. It is a very simple kind of biscuit or cracker. It is not soft and fluffy like the bread you might find in a baker's shop in the town. It is baked twice in a very hot oven until all the water is gone. This makes it as hard as a piece of wood, but it also means it will never go rotten, even in the damp air of the wall. You hold the piece of bread in your hand. It is a dull, sandy color and feels rough, like a flat stone. To eat it, you cannot just take a big bite. You would probably break a tooth. Instead, you have to be patient. You break off a small corner with a loud snap that echoes in the quiet night. You put the piece in your mouth and let it sit on your tongue. Slowly, the moisture in your mouth softens the hard grain. It takes a few minutes, but eventually, the cracker begins to crumble. The taste is very simple. It tastes of toasted wheat, a little bit of salt, and the faint hint of wood smoke. It is a very honest taste. There are no fancy spices or honey here. This is the fuel of the Roman army. It is designed to be carried 4 miles and eaten on the move. As you chew, you feel a small spark of strength returning to your body. Each bite gives your jaw something to do, which helps you stay awake. In the military, this bread is so important that the leaders make sure every fort has enough to last 4 months. There is a historical fact about this hard bread that shows how tough a soldier's life can be. The name bucellatum comes from the word bucella, which means a small mouthful. Soldiers were often given a specific weight of this bread every day. Because it was so dry and light, a small bag of it could feed a man for a long time. It was the emergency food of the ancient world. Whether a soldier was marching across a desert or standing on a frozen wall in Britain, this bread was always in his bag. You lean against the stone wall and chew slowly. This is your moment of reflection. You think about the massive ovens back in the fort where this bread was made. You can imagine the heat of the fire and the smell of hundreds of these crackers baking at once. You think about the baker, a man who probably has flour in his hair and soot on his face, working through the day so that you can have something to eat in the night. It is a quiet, humble job, but without him, the watch would be much harder. You feel a small sense of thanks for the simple things that keep you alive. You look closely at the piece of bread in your hand. This is a bit of micro-history you notice every time you eat. On the surface of the cracker, there are tiny little holes. These holes were poked into the dough with a small wooden tool before it was baked. They are there to let the steam escape so the bread doesn't puff up. They look like a pattern of tiny stars. You run your thumb over the holes, feeling the texture. It is a small, human touch on a very plain object. Even a simple cracker was made with a specific method that has been used for hundreds of years. The world around you is very still. The only sound is the crunch of the bread in your mouth. You look down at the ground. There are a few tiny crumbs that have fallen onto your cloak. You carefully pick them up and eat them too. On the wall, you learn not to waste anything. Every crumb is a little bit of life. You take a sip of water from your flask to wash it down. The water is so cold, it makes your throat tingle, but it feels good to clear the dry taste of the grain. You feel a bit more alert now. The simple act of eating has woken up your mind. You look at the dark line of the wall stretching out ahead of you. It looks like a path made of silver in the moonlight. You think about the thousands of other soldiers who have stood exactly where you are standing, eating the same kind of hard bread and looking at the same stars. It makes the wall feel less like a lonely prison and more like a shared home. You are part of a long story that is written in stone and wheat. You finish the last bit of the cracker and wipe your hands on your cloak. The pouch on your belt feels a little lighter, and your stomach feels a little more settled. It wasn't a feast, but it was exactly what you needed. The night shift continues, and you are ready for it. You pick up your spear and move away from the wall. Your boots hit the stone with a steady beat. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound is loud in the cold air. You walk past a stack of spare stones used for repairs. They are covered in a thin layer of white frost that looks like sugar. You think about how the bread you just ate is a bit like these stones, hard, dependable, and built to last. You are the same. You have made yourself tough to match the world around you. You take a deep, slow breath of the midnight air. It is sharp and clean. You feel strong, you feel full, and you feel ready to face whatever the rest of the night brings. The morning is still a long way off, but you have your bread, you have your wall, and you have your strength. You step back into the shadow of the tower wall to get out of the wind. Even though the night is cold, your work is not done. You look down at your chest. You are wearing a heavy shirt made of thousands of tiny iron rings. This is your armor, called Larica Hamata. It is very strong, but because the air is so damp in Britain, the iron likes to turn red with rust. You notice that one of the leather straps on your shoulder is starting to come loose. If that strap breaks, the heavy iron shirt will pull on your neck and make you very tired. You decide to fix it now, while the night is quiet. You reach into a small bag and pull out a thick needle made of bone and a piece of strong linen thread. The thread has been rubbed with beeswax to make it slippery and tough. Fixing your gear is a big part of being a soldier. You don't have a shop to go to, so you must learn to be clever with your hands. You hold the leather strap and start to push the needle through the old holes. The leather is thick and cold, so you have to push hard with your thumb. It is slow work, but it is peaceful. Here is a historical fact about your armor. It takes a very long time to make a shirt of chainmail. A craftsman has to bend and hammer nearly 30,000 tiny iron rings to make just one shirt. Some of the rings are closed tight, and others are held together with a tiny pin called a rivet. Because it takes so much work to make, this armor is very expensive. It is often passed down from an older soldier to a younger one. Your armor might have seen many winters on this wall long before you were even born. You pull the thread tight and tie a strong knot. This is your moment of reflection. You look at the tiny rings of the armor. They look like the scales of a grey fish in the moonlight. Each ring is small and weak on its own, but when they are all linked together, they are strong enough to stop a sword. You think about the army. Each soldier is like one of these rings. On your own, you are just a man in the cold, but linked together with your friends and the men in the towers, you are a wall that cannot be broken. You notice a micro-history detail as you work. On one of the iron rings near your chest, there is a tiny bit of yellow metal. It is a brass ring that someone put there as a decoration or perhaps to mark a repair. It catches the light of the stars and glows just a little bit. It is a tiny bit of beauty on a heavy, grey tool of war. You touch it with your finger, feeling the cold, hard metal. It reminds you that even in a place as tough as this, people still like to make things look a little bit special. You finish the repair and put your needle away. You shrug your shoulders to feel the weight of the iron shirt settle into place. It feels much better now. The weight is spread out across your back instead of pulling on your throat. You feel solid and protected. The iron is cold, but underneath it, your thick wool tunic keeps your skin warm. You are like a nut inside a hard shell. You take a moment to look at the sky again. The clouds are moving fast, and the moon is playing hide and seek behind them. When the moon is covered, the world turns a deep, scary black. When it comes out, the stones of the wall turn white as bone. You stand perfectly still, letting your eyes get used to the change in light. You feel very calm. The small task of fixing your strap has made you feel like you are in control of your world. You pick up your spear and step out from the shadow. The wind is waiting for you, but you don't mind. Your armor is tight, your heart is steady, and your watch is moving along. You are the watchman, and you have taken care of your tools, so they can take care of you. You begin your walk again, the iron rings of your shirt making a soft, metallic clink with every step you take. The wind, which has been a constant roar for hours, suddenly dies down to a soft whisper. But as the wind leaves, something new arrives. You look out over the edge of the wall and see a thick, white blanket moving towards you. It is the mist. In the north, the mist does not just fall, it rolls. It comes out of the deep valleys and the wet marshes like a slow, silent river of smoke. It moves across the empty ground, swallowing the bushes, the rocks, and the ditch. Soon, it reaches the base of the wall, and you watch as the world below you simply disappears. You are now standing on a stone island in a sea of white. You can no longer see the ground. You can no longer see the trees in the distance. Even the stars above are starting to look fuzzy and dim, like candles behind a thin cloth. The mist is cold and very wet. You can feel the tiny droplets of water landing on your face. They feel like cold, ghostly fingers. Your eyelashes grow heavy with moisture, and you have to blink often to keep your vision clear. The world has become very small. You can only see a few steps in front of you. This is a very strange time on the wall. When you cannot see, your ears start to work harder. You listen to the silence. In the mist, sounds change. The drip of water from a stone ledge sounds as loud as a footstep. The distant cry of a bird feels like it is right next to your ear. You stand very still, holding your breath. You are not afraid, but you are alert. This is when a watchman must be at his best. When the world is hidden, you must use your spirit to feel what is out there. There is a historical fact about the weather here that the Romans found very difficult. The leaders in Rome wrote letters back and forth about the thick and heavy air of Britain. They believed that this mist was not just water, but a sign of a wild and mysterious land. To a soldier from a dry, sunny place, this white fog felt like a wall of magic. They called it nebulous, and they spent a lot of time and money building high towers just so they could stand above it and look for danger. You lean your shoulder against the damp stone of a battlement. This is your moment of reflection. You think about how easy it is for things to be hidden. Under that white blanket, there could be anything. But you also think about how beautiful it is. The mist softens the hard edges of the stone. It makes the world look quiet and peaceful, like it is wrapped in sheep's wool. You feel a sense of calm. The mist is not your enemy. It is just the breath of the earth. You are safe up here on your high stone path, watching the white clouds drift past your knees. You notice a micro-history detail on your spear. The iron head of the weapon is now covered in tiny beads of water. They look like clear glass. You take the edge of your wool cloak and gently wipe the metal dry. You know that if you leave the water there, the iron will start to rust by morning. It is a small, quiet task, just you, your spear, and the mist. You feel a sense of care for your tools. They are the only things you can see clearly right now, and they feel very important. The mist starts to swirl around your boots. It looks like white snakes dancing on the stone. You can smell the wetness. It smells like cold metal and damp moss. It is a very clean smell. It washes away the scent of the peat smoke for a while. You take a deep breath, and the cold, wet air feels heavy in your lungs. It wakes you up better than a splash of water to the face. You feel refreshed and sharp. You begin to walk slowly through the white world. You have to be careful because the stones are now very slippery from the moisture. You keep one hand on the inner wall to guide you. Click-clack, click-clack. The sound of your boots is muffled now, as if the mist is eating the noise. You feel like you are walking through a dream. You are the only person left in the world, but you know that further along the wall, your friends are doing the same thing. They are also walking through the white, listening to the silence, and waiting for the morning. You reach the end of your section and turn around. The mist is so thick now that you can barely see the torch in the tower you just left. It is just a faint, orange smudge in the grey. You don't mind. You know the way by heart. You have walked these stones so many times that your feet know where every crack and every bump is. You are a part of this wall, and even the thickest mist cannot make you lose your way. You are the watchman, and you see with more than just your eyes. You reach out and wrap your hand around the wooden shaft of your spear. This is your pilum. It is not just a simple stick with a pointy end. It is a masterpiece of Roman engineering. Usually, You carry 2 of them when you are on a full march, but tonight, on the night shift, 1 is enough to keep you company. The wood is made of ash, a tree that grows strong and straight in the forests. It has a pale, greyish colour, and it feels very hard and smooth against your palm. Because of the mist, the wood is a little bit damp, making it feel cool and heavy. The spear is much taller than you are. The wooden part is about 5 feet long, and then there is a long, thin neck made of iron that ends in a sharp, triangular head. You grip the wood right where the weight feels balanced. Your hand fits perfectly around the shaft. Over the months, your palm has worn the wood down until it is as smooth as silk. You can feel the grain of the tree under your skin. It feels like a solid, living thing. When the wind blows hard against you, you lean on the spear like a walking stick, and it holds you steady against the world. Here is a historical fact about your spear. The pylon was designed with a very clever trick. The long iron neck is made of soft metal. This means that if you throw it at an enemy's wooden shield, the point sticks in, but the thin neck bends. Once it is bent, the enemy cannot pull it out, and they cannot throw it back at you. It makes their shields heavy to carry, forcing them to drop it. Even though you are just holding it tonight, it is a reminder of how much thought the Romans put into every tool they made. You stand still for a moment, resting the butt of the spear on the stone walkway. This is your moment of reflection. You think about the tree this wood came from. It probably stood in a quiet glade, listening to the birds and feeling the rain. Now, it is here on the edge of the empire, helping you guard the wall. You feel a sense of partnership with the wood. It is your third leg, your reach, and your protection. In the silence of the night, you can almost feel the strength of the ash tree flowing into your arm, making you feel as rooted as a forest. You notice a micro-history detail on the iron neck of the spear. There is a small maker's mark stamped into the metal near the wooden socket. It is a tiny image of a hammer and an anvil. This tells you that the iron was forged in a government workshop far to the south. Thousands of these were made in a row, but this one was given to you. You remember the day you received it from the armory. The wood was new and white then, and the iron was shiny and black. Now, it has the marks of your life on it, a few small dents in the wood, and a bit of polish on the tip. The mist is still thick, and it gathers in tiny drops on the iron head of the spear. You watch a single drop of water crawl slowly down the metal neck. It moves like a tiny, clear insect. You follow it with your eyes until it reaches the wood and is soaked up by the grain. It is a very small thing to watch, but when you are on watch, small things are everything. They help the time pass. They keep your mind focused on the present moment instead of the cold or the hours left until dawn. You shift your grip, moving your hand up and down the shaft. The wood is cold, but it is not biting cold like the iron is. Wood has a way of holding onto a tiny bit of warmth. You tuck the spear under your arm for a second to blow on your fingers. Your breath looks like a puff of smoke in the grey air. Then, you take hold of the spear again. It feels familiar and right. It is the weight of your duty. As long as you have this spear in your hand, you are a soldier of the legion. Without it, you are just a man lost in the fog. You begin to walk again, using the spear to feel the ground in front of you through the mist. The iron tip makes a soft tink sound every time it touches a stone. Click-clack, tink. Click-clack, tink. It is a new rhythm for your walk. It makes you feel like a giant insect with many legs moving across the wall. You feel very safe. The spear is long enough that you can touch things before you reach them. It gives you a sense of space in a world where you can only see 3 feet ahead. You reach a part of the wall where the stone is a bit uneven. You plant the spear firmly and use it to balance as you step over a small puddle. The water in the puddle black and reflects nothing. You think about how many times this spear has saved you from a fall. It is a humble tool, but it is a loyal one. You feel a deep sense of pride in your equipment. Everything you carry has a purpose, and everything works together to keep you standing. The night shift is a quiet time, but the spear makes it feel less lonely. It is a physical link to your training and your life in the fort. You imagine your friends in the barracks, their spears leaning against the walls next to their bunks. All along the 80 miles of the wall, thousands of these ashwood shafts are being held by men just like you. You are all part of a great forest of iron and wood, standing tall against the dark. You take a slow, deep breath, grip the wood a little tighter, and continue your steady march through the white silence. You have reached the halfway point of your watch, and the cold has finally started to settle deep into your marrow. You step inside the guardroom of the main gatehouse, where a small fire is burning. One of your friends, a soldier from the sun-drenched coast of Africa, is there. He doesn't say a word, but he hands you a steaming metal cup. You wrap your frozen fingers around the warm bronze, feeling the heat travel instantly through your gloves and into your skin. This is the greatest gift a man can receive on the night shift. It is a cup of colder. Colder is a simple drink, but it feels like magic when the world is frozen. It is a mixture of wine and water, heated until it is nearly boiling. But it is not just plain wine. To make it taste better, and to help the body stay strong, the cooks add spices. You can smell the sharp, sweet scent of cinnamon and the earthy, dark smell of cloves. There is also a bit of honey stirred in to make it thick and sweet. As you bring the cup to your lips, the steam rises into your nose, clearing your head and warming your face. You take a small, slow sip. The liquid is very hot, and it stings your tongue for a second, but then the warmth spreads like a wave. It travels down your throat and blooms in your chest, like a tiny sun. You can feel the honey coating your throat and the spices making your mouth tingle. It is the first time in hours that your body has felt truly relaxed. The wine is not strong enough to make you sleepy, but it is just enough to take the edge off the biting cold. It makes the world seem a little less harsh and the night a little less long. Here is a historical fact about what you are drinking. The Romans were very famous for their wine, and they brought it with them everywhere they went. Even in the cold north of Britain, they made sure to bring thousands of large clay jars, called amphorae, filled with wine from the south. They didn't like to drink their wine cold or straight from the jar like a barbarian would. They preferred to mix it with hot water and spices to make it a civilized drink. Even on the edge of the world, you were drinking just like a man in a palace in Rome. You sit on a low wooden bench, holding the cup with both hands. This is your moment of reflection. You watch the steam dance in the light of the fire. You think about how amazing it is that these spices traveled so far. The cinnamon and cloves came from lands so distant they feel like fairy tales places with elephants and giant green leaves. Now, those spices are here, in your cup, helping a tired soldier stay awake on a stone wall. You feel a sense of wonder at how connected the world is. A tiny piece of a tree from the other side of the world is now the thing that is giving you strength. You notice a micro-history detail on your bronze cup. On the handle, there is a small, worn-down shape of a dolphin. It is a common design, but because your hands have held this cup so many times, the metal is smooth and shiny right where your thumb rests. You run your thumb over the dolphin's back. It feels like a small, friendly charm. You think about all the other nights this cup has been filled with hot colder. It has seen many watches and many soldiers. It is a small piece of home that you carry with you into the dark. The room is very quiet, except for the soft crackle of the wood in the fire. You take another sip of the drink. You find yourself looking at your boots, which are covered in a fine layer of white mist. They look like they belong to a statue. but the warmth in your belly reminds you that you are very much alive. You feel a sense of gratitude for this moment. In the middle of the wind and the ice, you have found a small pocket of peace. You have a warm drink, a dry seat, and a friend nearby. It is enough. You finish the last drop of the spiced wine. You can feel the grains of the spices at the bottom of the cup, tasting of the earth and the sun. You set the cup down on the table with a soft clink. The warmth is now flowing through your arms and down into your legs. Your shivers have stopped. Your mind feels clear and focused. You stand up and stretch, feeling your muscles move easily now that the ice has been melted from your joints. You look at your friend and nod a silent thank you. He nods back, his face half hidden in the shadows of his hood. You pick up your spear and prepare to head back out. The transition from the warm room to the cold night is always hard, but the colder has given you a shield of heat that will last for a long time. You open the heavy door, and the cold air hits you, but it doesn't feel as scary as it did before. You step back onto the walkway. The mist is still there, but now it looks like silver silk under the moon. You feel strong. You feel cared for. You take a deep breath of the freezing air, and it no longer bites. It just feels fresh. You begin your walk again, the click-clack of your boots sounding out with a new energy. The spices of the south are in your blood, and the stone of the wall is under your feet. You are the watchman, and you are ready for the second half of the night. You find yourself in a quiet corner of a small tower room. The air here is still, and the light from a single oil lamp makes the shadows dance on the stone walls. You sit down on a wooden bench and reach for the scabbard hanging from your belt. This is where you keep your sword, the gladius. It is not a long, heavy blade like the ones the people in the north use. It is a short, thick sword made for working in tight spaces. You pull the blade from its leather and wood sheath with a soft, sliding sound check. The iron is dark and cold, but you have work to do to keep it ready. You pull a small cloth from your pouch. The cloth is soaked in a thick, clear oil. In this damp British air, the iron of your sword can start to rust in just a few hours. Rust is the enemy of the soldier. It eats into the metal and makes the blade weak. You begin to rub the oil onto the flat part of the sword. You move your hands slowly from the handle down to the point. You can feel the smoothness of the iron under the cloth. As the oil covers the metal, the blade begins to shine. It catches the orange light of the lamp, looking like a pool of dark water. Here is a historical fact about your sword. The gladius was the most famous weapon in the world for hundreds of years. It was so good at its job that the Romans didn't change the design for a very long time. It is meant for stabbing, not swinging. In the middle of a big fight, when men are standing shoulder to shoulder, there is no room to swing a long sword. The gladius is small enough to use quickly, and its sharp points can find the gaps in any armor. It is a tool of balance and speed. You hold the sword up to the light. This is your moment of reflection. You look at the hilt, which is the handle of the sword. It is made of polished bone, carved with grooves, so that your fingers can grip it tightly even if your hands are wet or cold. You think about how many hours you have spent holding this bone handle. It has become shaped to your hand over time. The sword is an extension of your own arm. When you hold it, you don't feel like a regular man anymore. You feel like a part of the great Roman machine. You feel a sense of quiet power in the weight of the iron. You notice a micro-history detail on the blade. Near the guard, there is a small, thin line where the metal is a different color. This is a sign of how the sword was made. The blacksmith took different types of iron and folded them together while they were white hot. This makes the blade strong on the inside but hard on the edges. You run your thumb very carefully over the flat side of the iron. You can feel the slight ripples in the metal. It reminds you of the fire and the hammers that created this tool. It is a piece of art that was made to do a very hard job. The room is very silent. You can hear the soft rub of your cloth against the metal. You can hear the oil lamp making a tiny hissing sound as the flame eats the oil. It is a very peaceful task. Taking care of your equipment is a way to stay calm when the world outside is dark and unknown. You focus on the shine of the blade. You make sure there is not a single spot of dirt or a single drop of water left on the iron. You want it to be perfect. You finish the oiling and take a clean bit of dry cloth to wipe away the extra grease. The blade now looks like silver. It is beautiful in a cold, sharp way. You slide the sword back into its scabbard. It fits perfectly, making a solid clack as the guard hits the wood. You feel a sense of satisfaction. Your sword is clean, dry, and protected from the winter mist. It is ready for whatever the night shift might bring, though you hope it stays in its sheath until the sun comes up. You stand up and stretch your legs. The stone walls of the tower feel very solid around you. You look at the oil lamp and see that the flame is steady. You feel the weight of the sword hanging at your side. It is a comforting weight. It reminds you that you are never truly alone on the wall. You have your training, your gear, and the skill of the men who made these tools. You are a soldier of the Legion, and you are well prepared. You move toward the door. The transition from the quiet room to the windy wall is always a shock, but you are ready for it. You have taken care of your blade, and now it is time to take care of the wall. You open the door and feel the cold air rush in to meet you. The mist is still thick, and the wind is still moaning, but you step out with confidence. You are the watchman, and your iron is bright and sharp. You begin your walk again, the click-clack of your boots and the soft jingle of your belt filling the silence of the night. You step out from the tower and find that the mist has thinned just enough to let the sounds of the land travel up to your ears. When you are on the night shift, the world is not truly silent. It is filled with the voices of the night. You stop and stand perfectly still, letting your spear rest against your shoulder. You close your eyes for a moment to let your ears do the work. The wind is just a soft sigh now, and in that quiet, you begin to hear the life that carries on while the soldiers and the farmers sleep. From the dark woods that huddle at the base of the hills to the north, you hear a sound. It is a long, shivering cry, hoo-hoo-hoo. It is an owl. This is the great wood owl of Britain. It is a creature of the dark, just like you. You imagine it sitting on a bare oak branch, its big yellow eyes watching the grass for the movement of a tiny mouse. The sound is lonely, but it is also very peaceful. It reminds you that even though this land feels wild and strange, it is a home to many things. The owl does not care about walls or empires. It only cares about the night and the hunt. Here is a historical fact about how soldiers felt about these sounds. Many Romans were very superstitious. They believed that the cries of birds like owls or crows could be messages from the gods. To some, the sound of an owl at night was a warning of bad luck, but to a soldier who has lived on the wall for many years, it is just a familiar neighbor. You have learned to tell the difference between the sounds of nature and the sounds of a person moving in the dark. The owl's cry tells you that the woods are quiet. If the birds suddenly went silent, that would be the time to worrying. You stand in the silence, letting the cold air brush against your cheeks. This is your moment of reflection. You think about how big the world is. Under this same moon, there are wolves moving through the high mountains and deer sleeping in the thickets. You are just one man standing on a stone line, but you are part of this giant, living map. The sounds of the night make you feel connected to the earth. You are not an intruder here anymore. You have become a part of the landscape, a shadow among shadows, listening to the heartbeat of the forest. You notice a micro-history detail about the animals around the fort. Down in the ditch, you hear a soft scrabble-scrabble sound. It is a red fox, These foxes love the forts because the soldiers often throw scraps of food and old bones over the side of the wall. The fox is a clever thief with a bushy tail and bright eyes. You can just see a flash of its red fur in the moonlight as it disappears into a hole. You feel a small smile on your face. It is a bit like having a pet that you never get to touch. The fox knows you are there, and you know the fox is there. It is a quiet friendship of the night. The sounds change as the wind shifts. Now you can hear the water. There is a small stream that runs through the valley, and tonight it is loud because the rain from yesterday has filled it up. You hear the constant rush-hush of the water over the stones. It is a very soothing sound. It reminds you of the fountains in the big cities, but it is wilder and more honest. The water is cold and fast, moving toward the sea. You find that the sound helps you keep your rhythm as you start to walk again. You look at the dark shapes of the trees. They look like giants standing in the fog. You hear the branches rubbing together creak, snap. In the summer, the leaves make a soft rustling sound like silk, but in the winter, the bare wood sounds like dry bones. It is a sharper, harder noise. You listen to see if any of the snaps sound like a footstep. You have learned to tell the difference between a branch breaking from the frost and a branch breaking under a boot. Tonight, the trees are just talking to the wind. You reach the next guard post and nod to the stone statues that stand on the corners. You feel very awake. The night sounds have sharpened your mind. When you are alone in the dark, your brain looks for patterns, and hearing the familiar calls of the owls and the rush of the water makes you feel safe. It tells you that the world is behaving exactly as it should. There are no surprises tonight. There is only the long, slow turn of the earth toward the morning. You take a deep breath, and the air smells of wet pine and cold earth. It is a heavy, rich smell that you only get late at night. You adjust your cloak, feeling the wool rub against your armor with a soft hush. Your own sounds, the jingle of your belt, the thump of your boots become part of the night's music. You are the watchman, and you are adding your own small voice to the story of the wall. You begin to walk back toward the main gatehouse. The owl calls one last time, a soft good night from the trees. You feel a sense of peace. The night shift can be a lonely time, but when you listen to the world around you, you realize you are never truly alone. The forest is awake. The water is moving, and the night is full of life. You walk on, your eyes on the horizon, and your ears open to the whispers of the dark. You stop your steady walk and turn toward the outer edge of the wall. You reach out a hand and place your palm flat against the stones. This is not a smooth, painted wall like you might find inside a temple. It is rough, cold, and hard. The wall is made of hundreds of thousands of rectangular blocks of grey sandstone. As you run your fingers over the surface, you feel the tiny grains of sand and the sharp edges where the stone was cut. In the moonlight, the wall looks like a giant, silver ribbon that has been dropped across the green and brown hills. It is the most solid thing you have ever touched. The stone feels like ice against your skin. You can feel the moisture from the mist sitting in the little pits and cracks of the rock. This wall is very thick, about 10 feet wide in most places. It is not just a rows of stone. It is like a giant sandwich. The outside is made of these neat, cut blocks, and the inside is filled with a mix of rubble, flint, and a very strong glue made of lime and sand called mortar. This makes the wall so strong that even a battering ram would have a hard time shaking it. It feels like you are touching the very bones of the earth, reshaped by the hands of men to stand tall and straight. Here is a historical fact about the stones you are touching. Every single one of these blocks had to be dug out of a quarry, sometimes miles away. Then, they were shaped by hand using iron chisels and heavy hammers. If you look closely at the block under your hand, you might see a small mark carved into it. These are called centaurial stones, They are like little signatures. A group of soldiers, called a century, would carve their name into a stone to show which part of the wall they had built. It was a way of showing pride in their hard work. You lean your forehead against the cold stone for a moment. This is your moment of reflection. You think about how long these stones will stay here. You are just a man, and your life is short like the flicker of a candle. But this stone has been here 4 years, and it will be here long after you are gone. It has seen the snows of many winters and the heat of many summers. It doesn't move. It doesn't complain about the cold. It just stands there doing its job. Touching the wall makes you feel a little bit stronger, as if the stillness of the stone is rubbing off on you. You notice a micro-history detail in the gap between 2 blocks. There is a small patch of dried, yellow lichen growing there. Lichen is a tiny plant that looks like a crusty scab on the rock. It grows very, very slowly, taking years just to move an inch. You touch it with your fingertip. It feels dry and crunchy. Even on this cold, grey wall, life finds a way to hang on. It reminds you of yourself and your fellow soldiers. You are like the lichen, tough, slow-moving, and able to live in a place where nothing else wants to stay. The wall is not just a barrier. It is a road. You look down at the stone walkway where you have been walking all night. The stones here are flatter and wider, but they are worn down in the middle. Thousands of boots have walked this same path, year after year. The iron nails in the soldiers' boots have scratched and smoothed the rock over time. You are walking in the footsteps of men who stood this same watch 100 years ago. It makes you feel like you are part of a long, invisible line of ghosts, all linked together by this grey stone path. You pull your hand away from the wall and rub your palm against your wool cloak to warm it up. The shape of the stone stays in your mind. You think about the night shift and how much more difficult it would be if the wall weren't here. Without these stones, you would just be a man standing in a wet field. But with the wall, you are high up, safe, and powerful. The stone gives you a place to stand. It gives you a view of the world. It is the foundation of everything you do here. You look at the way the mortar, the white glue between the rocks has started to crumble in some places. The winter is hard on the wall. When water gets into the cracks and freezes, it expands and pushes the stones apart. Every spring, the soldiers have to go out with buckets of fresh lime to fix the holes. It is a constant battle between the men who build and the winter that wants to break things down. Tonight, however, the wall is winning. It is holding firm against the wind and the frost. You take a step back and look at the height of the wall. From the ground to the top of the battlements, it is nearly 15 feet high. To someone standing in the dark below, it must look like a mountain made by magic. It is a symbol that says Rome is here. You feel a sense of pride in being the one who walks on top of it. You are the eyes of the stone. You are the living part of this giant, silent machine. You pick up your spear and prepare to move on. The stone wall stretches out ahead of you, glowing faintly in the moonlight. It looks like a path of salt cutting through the dark hills. You feel ready to continue. Your hand is warm again, but the memory of the cold, rough stone makes you feel solid and sure of yourself. You begin your walk again, the click-clack of your boots echoing off the very stones you were just touching. You step back into the small shelter of the tower to find a moment of stillness. On a small wooden ledge, tucked away from the draft, lies a thin piece of wood. It is about the size of a modern postcard and as thin as a slice of cheese. This is a writing tablet, made of birch wood. It is one of the most personal things a soldier owns. In the dim light of the oil lamp, you pick up a small metal tool called a stylus. One end is sharp for scratching marks into the wood, and the other end is flat for rubbing out mistakes. Tonight, you feel the need to send a message to someone far away. The wood is pale and has a very light, sweet smell. It is so thin that you have to be careful not to snap it with your cold fingers. You begin to scratch words into the surface. You do not use fancy ink or expensive paper. You simply press the metal point into the wood, leaving behind dark, thin grooves. You write about the cold. You write about the night shift and the way the mist looks like a white sea. You tell your family or a friend that you are safe, that you are warm enough, and that you miss the sound of their voices. It is a small way to reach out from the edge of the world. Here is a historical fact about these little pieces of wood. These are called Vindolanda tablets, named after one of the big forts near the wall. For a long time, people thought that soldiers on the wall were mostly quiet and didn't write much, but thousands of these tablets were found buried in the mud. They show that soldiers were writing all the time. They wrote letters asking for more socks, invitations to birthday parties, and lists of how much grain they had used. It shows that even in a place this tough, people wanted to stay connected. You pause your writing and look at the small marks you have made. This is your moment of reflection. You think about how strange it is that a few scratches on a piece of a tree can carry your thoughts across hundreds of miles. You imagine a messenger on a fast horse carrying this tablet south, over the bridges and along the straight stone roads, until it reaches a warm house in a sunny town. You feel a little less lonely. Even though you are standing on a freezing wall, your words can travel to a place where the air is soft and the fire is bright. You notice a micro-history detail on the tablet. Before you started writing, the wood was folded in half. There are two tiny holes at the top where a piece of string was used to tie it shut like a little book. You can see the faint mark where the string pressed into the soft wood. This was done so that no one else could read your private thoughts. It makes the letter feel like a secret treasure. You run your thumb over the smooth surface, feeling the slight ridges of the letters you have just carved. It feels like a conversation held in your hand. The room is very quiet as you finish your letter. You don't write much, just enough to let them know you are still here. You use a simple kind of writing called Roman cursive. It is fast and messy, the kind of writing a busy man uses. You blow on the wood to clear away the tiny bits of sawdust left by the stylus. The wood looks clean and honest. You fold the tablet back together and place it in your pouch. You will give it to the mail carrier when he arrives at the fort tomorrow morning. You feel a sense of relief. Putting your thoughts onto the wood has made your heart feel a bit lighter. The night shift can make your mind feel heavy with silence, but now you have shared that silence with someone else. You pick up your spear and look at the oil lamp. The flame is getting low, but there is still enough light to see the door. You feel ready to go back out. You are not just a soldier. You are a person with a home and people who care about you. You step back onto the wall, and the wind hits your face again. It feels sharper now, but you don't mind as much. You have a message tucked into your belt, a little piece of yourself that is waiting to go on a journey. You think about the person who will receive it. You imagine them sitting by a window, untying the string and reading your words. It makes you feel like you are already halfway there. You are the watchman, and though you stay here to guard the stone, your spirit is free to travel. You begin your walk again, the click-clack of your boots keeping time with the thoughts in your head. The moon is still high, and the wall is still long, but you feel a new kind of energy. You have done more than just watch the dark tonight. You have reached out and touched the world beyond the wall. You take a slow, deep breath and continue your journey along the high stone path, a solitary figure with a story to tell. The night is at its deepest point, and the mist has grown so thick that the world feels as though it is made of grey wool. You step inside the small stone alcove of a wall turret to check on your light. On a flat stone ledge sits a tiny, humble object that is your only true companion in the dark. It is a small oil lamp, made of orange-red clay. It is no bigger than the palm of your hand and shaped like a small, flat pear. This is your lucerna. In a world of vast, freezing shadows, this little flame is your tiny sun. You leaning close to the lamp. The light it gives off is soft and warm, casting a golden glow on your hands. The lamp works in a very simple way. The hollow body of the clay is filled with olive oil, and a small wick made of twisted linen sits in a hole at the front. The flame is small, about the size of a fingernail, but it is steady. It dances and flickers every time a tiny draft of wind finds its way through the stones. You watch the shadow of the flame jump against the wall. It looks like a tiny person dancing a silent dance. Here is a historical fact about your little lamp. Most of the olive oil used in these lamps had to be brought to Britain from places like Spain or Italy, because it had to travel so far in big clay jars on ships and wagons. The oil was very expensive. The army leaders were very careful with it. Every soldier was given a small amount of oil for his watch, and you learned not to waste a single drop. This lamp is not just for seeing. It is a sign of the great reach of the empire, bringing the oil of the south to light up the dark of the north. You hold your hands near the lamp, being careful not to touch the hot clay. This is your moment of reflection. You think about how much we depend on small things. In the middle of the day, you would never notice the light of this tiny lamp. But here, in the middle of a frozen night on the edge of the world, it feels like the most important thing you own. It gives you a sense of focus. As long as the flame is burning, the dark cannot completely swallow you. You feel a sense of peace watching the golden light. It reminds you that even the smallest light can hold back the biggest shadow. You notice a micro-history detail on the top of the lamp. There is a small picture pressed into the clay. It shows a tiny figure of a woman holding a torch. This is the goddess Libertas, who represents freedom. The person who made this lamp in a workshop far away decided to add this little bit of art. You run your finger over the bumps in the clay. The lamp is a bit greasy from the oil, and it smells like warm olives and burnt linen. It is a kitchen smell, a home smell, and it feels very strange to have it here among the coal stones and iron spears. The oil is running a bit low, so you take a small flask from your belt. You carefully pour a tiny stream of golden oil into the hole at the back of the lamp. You do it slowly, so you don't spill any. You watch as the oil disappears into the dry clay. The flame grows a little brighter and steadier. You feel a sense of satisfaction in taking care of the light. It is a small job, but it is your job. You are the keeper of the flame at this section of the wall. The silence in the turret is very heavy. You can hear the tiny hiss of the oil as it burns. Outside, the wind is still moaning, but in here, with your lamp, the world feels manageable. You look at your shadow on the wall. It looks giant and strong. The light makes the rough stones of the wall look soft and orange. For a moment, you forget about the frost and the long walk ahead. You are just a man in a small circle of light. And for now, that is enough. You pick up the lamp by its small handle. The clay is warm but not too hot to hold. You use the light to check the floor of the turret, making sure no water has pooled near your spare gear. Everything is dry and in its place. You set the lamp back down on the ledge. You will leave it here to guide the next man who comes to check the post. It is a beacon of safety in the grey mist. You feel a new sense of calm. The night shift is moving along, and the little lamp has helped you through the darkest hour. You pick up your spear and prepare to step back out onto the walkway. You take one last look at the dancing flame. It looks so small and brave against the dark doorway. You feel like you are carrying a bit of that light inside you now. You step out into the mist, and the cold air hits you like a wall. But you don't feel lost. You know the lamp is there, burning steadily behind you. You begin your walk again, the click-clack of your boots sounding out in the quiet. You are the watchman, and though the night is vast, You have your light, your strength, and your purpose. You walk on into the grey, a shadow moving toward the promise of the morning. The air has turned so cold that you can feel it deep in your bones, even through your heavy wool cloak. To stay warm, you reach for a special bit of gear you keep for the coldest part of the night shift. These are your sheepskins. They are large, thick pieces of fur that still have the soft, curly wool attached to the hide. You wrap them around your legs, over your trousers, and tie them in place with simple leather strings. As soon as the fur touches your legs, you feel a wave of warmth. It is like being hugged by a warm, fluffy animal. The sheepskins are not pretty. They are a creamy, off-white color, and they have bits of hay and seeds stuck in the deep wool. But beauty does not matter out here on the wool. Only warmth matters. The wool is very thick and bouncy. When you squeeze it with your hand, it feels like a soft cushion. Because the wool is so dense, it traps the air close to your skin. Your body heat warms up that air, and the sheepskin keeps it from blowing away. It is the best way to stop the frost from turning your legs into ice. Here is a historical fact about how soldiers stayed warm. The Roman army was very good at using what they found in the land around them. While the leaders in Rome preferred thin silk or fine linen, the soldiers in Britain knew that nature was their best teacher. They looked at the local sheep, which lived outside in the wind and rain all year long, and they saw that their fur was the perfect shield. By wearing sheepskins, the soldiers were using a technology that had worked for thousands of years before the first stone of Rome was ever laid. You sit down for a moment to finish tying the last leather string. This is your moment of reflection. You think about the sheep that once wore this wool. You can imagine them huddling together in the lee of a hill, their heads down against the wind. You feel a sense of connection to the life of the island. You are not just a soldier in a metal suit. You are a living thing using the gifts of the earth to survive. The soft wool makes you feel a little bit more human and a little less like a machine. It reminds you that even in a world of war and walls, there is room for softness and comfort. You notice a micro-history detail on the sheepskin. In one corner, there is a small brand or mark burned into the leather. It is the mark of the farmer who raised the sheep. It looks like a small, crooked circle with a line through it. This sheep probably lived on a farm, just a few miles from the wall. Its wool was used for cloaks. Its meat was used to feed the fort, and its skin was given to you to keep you warm. Nothing was wasted. You feel a sense of respect for the cycle of life on the frontier. Everything has a purpose, and everyone is working together to get through the winter. You stand up and walk a few steps to see how the skins feel. They make your legs look very wide and heavy, and they make a soft swish-swish sound as you move. You look a bit like a bear walking on its hind legs. You don't mind the look. You feel amazing. The biting wind can no longer reach your shins or your knees. You feel like you are wearing a suit of warm clouds. You take a deep breath of the cold air, and for the first time in an hour, you don't shiver. The mist is still thick, and the wool of the sheepskins catches the tiny drops of water. After a few minutes, the surface of the fur looks like it is covered in silver dust, but the wetness doesn't go through to your skin. The natural oils in the wool, that same lanolin you smelled on your cloak, push the water away. You are dry, you are warm, and you are ready. The sheepskins have given you the extra strength you need to face the last few hours of your watch. You pick up your spear and look out over the wall. The world is silent and white. You feel very steady on your feet. The extra weight of the sheepskins makes you feel more grounded. You are like a tree with deep roots, or a rock that cannot be moved. You feel a sense of peace. You have your leather boots, your wool cloak, your iron armor, and your soft sheepskins. You are a walking fortress, a man who has mastered the cold. You begin your walk again, the swish-swish of the wool and the click-clack of your boots making a new song for the night. The moon is starting to move lower in the sky, and you know that the sun is waiting somewhere behind the hills. You are the watchman, and you are wrapped in the warmth of the earth. You walk on, a soft, white shadow moving through the grey mist, keeping the world safe while it sleeps. You look up from the stones of the walkway and notice a change in the air. The thick mist, which has been your only view 4 hours, is starting to break apart. It does not disappear, but it begins to swirl in a different way. Then you see it. A single, tiny white speck dances in front of your eyes. It moves slowly, catching a bit of the moonlight before it lands on the dark iron of your spear. Then another one follows, and another. It is the first snow of the winter. The flakes are large and soft. They do not fall like rain. They drift. They look like tiny feathers falling from the wings of a great bird. When they hit your wool cloak, they stay there for a second, looking like tiny white stars, before they melt into the dark fabric. The world, which was already quiet, becomes even more silent. Snow has a way of eating sound. The wind seems to hold its breath as the white flakes begin to cover the grey stone. You stand perfectly still and watch the road below the wall. The dark earth of the path is slowly being painted white. It starts in the corners of the rocks and the gaps between the paving stones. Soon, the entire world begins to look clean and new. The snow covers the mud, the soot from the fires, and the old brown leaves. It is like a white sheet has been pulled over the face of the earth. You feel a sense of wonder. Even though you are cold, you cannot help but think how pretty it looks. It makes the wool feel like a place from a storybook. Here is a historical fact about how the Romans felt about this weather. To many soldiers from the hot parts of the empire, snow was a very strange thing. Some of them had only seen it on the tops of very high mountains far away. When they first came to Britain and saw the sky falling in white pieces, some were actually afraid. They thought it was a sign from the gods or a strange kind of magic. But as they lived here longer, they learned that snow was just a part of the British winter. They even had words to describe the different kinds of snow, just like the local people did. You hold out your hand, palm up. A large snowflake lands right in the middle of your glove. This is your moment of reflection. You look at the tiny, delicate shape before it turns into a drop of clear water. You think about how something so small and soft can change the whole world. One snowflake is nothing, but millions of them together can stop an army. They can hide the roads, fill the ditches, and make the wool look like it is made of sugar. It reminds you that small things have great power when they work together. You feel a sense of peace. The snow makes the night shift feel less like a chore and more like a quiet journey through a dream. You notice a micro-history detail on the road below. There is a single set of tracks in the fresh, thin snow. It is not a person. It is a small bird that has hopped across the path, looking for a place to hide from the cold. The tracks look like tiny arrows pointing toward the gatehouse. You can see exactly where the bird stopped and where it took off again. It is a tiny record of a life that happened just a few minutes ago. On the wall, you learn to look for these small signs. They tell you that you are not the only thing moving in the dark. The snow begins to fall faster now. It starts to gather on the tops of your boots and on the brim of your helmet. You have to shake your head every few minutes to clear the white powder away. The cold feels different now. It is a dry, crisp cold. The air tastes like ice and metal. It feels very clean in your lungs. You pull your hood a little further forward to keep the flakes out of your eyes. Inside your cloak, you feel snug and safe, like a little animal in a burrow. You begin to walk again. The sound of your boots has changed. Instead of the sharp click-clack of metal on stone, there is a soft crunch-crunch as you step on the fresh snow. It is a very satisfying sound. It is the sound of a winter's night. You watch your shadow move across the white floor. It looks very dark and sharp against the bright snow. You feel like you are the first person to ever walk on this part of the wall. Everything looks so untouched and perfect. You look out over the north side of the wall. The hills, which were dark and scary an hour ago, now look soft and glowing. The snow catches the light of the moon and reflects it, making the night look much brighter than it was. You can see much further now. The trees in the distance look like white ghosts standing in a row. You feel a sense of clarity. The snow has washed away the shadows and made the world easy to see. You think about the morning. When the sun comes up, the whole land will be a blinding, brilliant white. The soldiers of the next watch will have to shovel the walkway to keep it safe. They will laugh and throw snowballs at each other to stay warm. But for now, the snow is all yours. You are the one who gets to see it fall. You are the one who gets to hear the silence it brings. It feels like a reward for staying awake through the long, dark hours. You reach the end of your section and turn back. The snow is already filling in your footsteps behind you. It is as if you were never there. The wall is constantly renewing itself, wiping away the marks of the men who walk on it. You feel a deep sense of calm. The world is at rest. The snow is falling. The wall is strong. And your watch is nearly done. You take a slow, deep breath of the freezing air and continue your walk through the white silence. A lone guard on a silver path. You decide to descend the narrow stone stairs that lead from the top of the wall down into the courtyard of the fort. Your legs feel a bit heavy from the hours of walking, and the fresh snow makes the steps a little slippery. You hold on to the cold iron rail and step carefully. Once your boots hit the flat ground of the fort, you walk toward a long, low building made of timber and clay. This is the stable. As you pull back the heavy wooden door, the air changes instantly. It is no longer sharp and freezing. It is thick, heavy, and much warmer. It smells of dried grass, old leather, and the sweet, musky scent of horses. The stable is very quiet, but it is not empty. You can hear the slow, rhythmic sound of animals breathing and the occasional crunch of a horse chewing on a mouthful of dry hay. There are dozens of horses here, standing in their wooden stalls. They are the partners of the Roman cavalry. These horses are not the giant creatures you might see today. They are smaller and very sturdy, with thick necks and strong legs. They are built for the rough hills of Britain, not for racing. You walk down the central path, your boots making a soft sound on the floor, which is covered in a deep layer of golden straw. You stop at one of the stalls and reach out your hand. A large, dark horse moves its head towards you. Its breath comes out in a warm, moist cloud that smells of grain. You stroke its velvet nose, feeling the warmth of its skin. The horse's ears twitch, and it lets out a soft, low whinny. It is a very peaceful sound. In the middle of the night shift, when the world feels like it is made of nothing but ice and iron, the presence of a living, warm animal is a great comfort. You stand there for a moment, just feeling the life coming from the horse. It makes you feel grounded and calm. Here is a historical fact about the horses on the wall. The men who rode these horses were not usually from Rome itself. They were special soldiers called auxiliaries. Many of them came from places like the Netherlands or Spain, where people were famous for being great riders. These cavalry units, called a lay, were very important. While you watched the wall on foot, these men and their horses are the ones who ride out into the hills to scout the land and carry messages between the forts. Without these horses, the wall would be blind and slow. You notice a small object hanging on a wooden peg next to the stall. It is a horse bit made of shiny bronze. This is your micro-history detail for the stables. This bit is the piece of metal that goes into the horse's mouth so the rider can guide it. It is shaped like a smooth bar with two large rings on the ends. You touch the bronze, and it feels cool, but not freezing like the metal outside. You can see where the metal has been worn smooth by the horse's tongue over many years. It is a simple tool, but it represents the bond between the man and the animal. It is how they talk to each other without using words. You sit down on a wooden crate filled with oats. This is your moment of reflection. You think about the life of these horses. They have traveled on big ships across the sea. They have galloped over the muddy fields and stood in the pouring rain. Like you, they are far from where they were born. Like you, they are doing a job for the empire. You feel a sense of kinship with them. We are all huddling together against the British winter. The horses give us their strength, and in return, we give them a warm roof and a belly full of grain. It is a fair trade in a hard world. The stable is very dark, lit only by a single lantern hanging from a beam. The light creates long, soft shadows that move as the horses shift their weight. You watch the way the straw on the floor catches the golden glow. It looks like a carpet of light. You listen to the sound of a horse pawing at the ground with its hoof, a dull thud thud. It is a very cozy, domestic sound. It reminds you that even inside a fortress, there are places that feel like a farm. It takes the edge off the military life for a few minutes. You look at the horse's coat. It is thick and shaggy now, its winter fur having grown in to protect it from the damp. You remember seeing the soldiers grooming these horses in the autumn sunshine, using a flat metal scraper called a strigil to clean the mud from their sides. Now, that mud is gone, replaced by the clean, dry smell of the stable. You feel a sense of order here. Everything is in its place. The saddles are stacked neatly on wooden racks. The leather bridles are oiled and hanging on hooks, and the water buckets are full. You take a deep breath of the stable air. It is heavy with the smell of the peat smoke that has drifted in from the barracks, mixed with the earthy scent of the animals. It is a smell that means safety. To a soldier, the stables are a place of rest. When you are here, you are not looking for enemies or worrying about the wind. You are just a man among animals. You find that your own breathing has slowed down to match the pace of the horses. You feel the tension leaving your back and your legs. You stand up and give the horse one last pat on its neck. The animal leans its head against your shoulder for a second, a heavy, warm weight that makes you feel valued. You turn away and walk back toward the heavy wooden door. As you open it, the cold air of the night rushes in, reminding you that your watch is not yet over. You step back out into the snow, feeling the contrast of the freezing wind against your skin. You walk back toward the stairs of the wall, the crunch of the snow under your boots sounding loud in the quiet courtyard. The warmth of the stable stays with you for a bit, like a warm coat for your spirit. You feel refreshed. The night shift can be a weary thing, but the quiet moments with the horses have given you a second wind. You climb back up to the stone walkway, ready to face the last stretch of the night. You are the watchman, and you have seen the silent strength of the legion's horses. You take a slow, deep breath and return to your post, the click-clack of your boots finding their rhythm once again. You are walking toward the stone tower at the end of your section. The snow has stopped falling, and the world is now wrapped in a deep, sparkling white. The air is still and very crisp. As you approach the doorway, a dark shape moves out from the shadows. Your hand goes to your spear, but then you see the familiar glint of a brass helmet. It is the man who will take over the watch. You stop and stand face to face. Neither of you speaks loudly. The night is too quiet for shouting. This is the moment when the night shift begins its change. You reach for the torch that is resting in a metal ring on the wall. It is a thick piece of pine wood soaked in pitch and fat. The flame is low, but it still casts a warm, flickering light on your friend's tired face. You take the torch from the wall and hold it out. He reaches out and takes the wooden handle from you. This is a simple act, but it is very important. You are passing the light. You are passing the responsibility of the wall from your hands to his. For a second, you both hold the wood, and you can feel the steady heat of the flame between you. Here is a historical fact about how the army kept time. The Romans did not have clocks like we do. They divided the night into 4 parts called vigilae. Each watch lasted about 3 hours. You have just finished the 3rd watch, the one that covers the deepest, coldest part of the night. The man standing in front of you is starting the 4th watch, the one that will see the first light of the sun. The passing of the torch is the signal that one part of the night has ended and the next has begun. You stand there for a moment in the silence. This is your moment of reflection. You look into your friend's eyes. You see the same tiredness you feel, but you also see the same strength. You realize that the wall is never truly alone. Even when you are walking by yourself, there is always someone coming to take your place. You are part of a never-ending circle of men. The torch you just passed has been burning since the sun went down, passed from hand to hand, and it will keep burning until the day is bright enough to put it out. It makes you feel like you are part of something that never sleeps. You notice a micro-history detail on the torch handle. The wood is black and charred at the top, but where the soldiers hold it, the wood is polished and smooth. You can see the dark stains from the oil on the soldiers' gloves and the salt from their skin. This piece of wood has been held by many men tonight. It carries the warmth of their hands and the smell of their cloaks. It is a humble tool, but it is the thing that links you all together in the dark. You feel a sense of shared duty as you let go of the wood and step back. Your friend nods to you. He tucks the torch into the ring of his own section of the wall and adjusts the strap of his shield. He looks out into the white hills, his eyes sharp and ready. You feel a sense of relief. The weight of the watch is off your shoulders now. You can feel your muscles start to relax, and the tiredness that you have been fighting 4 hours begins to wash over you like a soft wave. You are no longer the one who has to watch the dark. You are now the one who gets to find the warmth. You lean in and whisper the watchword of the night. It is a simple word, something like Victoria or Pox. He repeats it back to you, his voice low and gravelly from the cold. Now the change is complete. He's the watchman now. You take a step back into the tower, and for the first time in hours, you turn your back on the north. It feels strange but wonderful. You are moving toward the center of the fort, toward the barracks and the hidden fires. You look back one last time. You see the orange glow of the torch moving slowly away as your friend begins his first lap of the stone walkway. He looks like a tiny star moving along a giant silver ribbon. You think about the path he has to walk and the cold he has to face. You wish him a quiet watch in your mind. You know that in a few hours, he will be the one handing the torch to someone else, and the cycle will start all over again. The transition from duty to rest is a slow one. You don't run. You walk with a heavy, steady pace. You feel the iron studs of your boots biting into the snow. The crunch is the only sound you hear. You pass a small stone shrine where a single oil lamp is still burning. You give a small nod of thanks to the gods of the road and the gods of the wall. You have finished your shift. You have kept the line. You have done your part in the great machine of the empire. You reach the top of the stairs that lead down to the barracks. You take a deep breath of the cold air, but this time, it doesn't feel like a challenge. It feels like a goodbye. The night shift is behind you. Ahead of you is a wooden bunk, a thick blanket, and the deep, dreamless sleep of a man who has worked hard. You begin to descend the stairs, leaving the wind and the stars behind, as you move toward the heart of the fort. You are walking across the open courtyard of the fort, moving slowly toward the long wooden buildings where the soldiers sleep. The world is very still now. The wind has finally died down completely, and the sky is changing. It is no longer the deep, ink-black color of midnight. Instead, it is a very dark, smoky blue. You look toward the eastern hills, and you can see a tiny sliver of pale light beginning to grow on the horizon. It looks like a thin line of silver paint. After hours of darkness, the sight of the coming day feels like a warm drink for your eyes. You are waiting for the sun, and you know it is almost here. Your body feels very heavy. Every step in the snow takes a little more effort than the one before. The excitement of the night shift has passed, and now your muscles are starting to complain. You can feel the weight of your iron chainmail pressing down on your shoulders, and your spear feels like it is made of lead. But the sight of that growing light gives you a small spark of energy. You find a stone post near the barracks and lean against it for a moment. You want to see the world wake up. You want to watch the moment when the night shift officially ends. Here is a historical fact about how the soldiers felt about the spring. In the Roman army, the winter was a time of waiting. They did not usually go out on big marches or start new battles when the snow was deep. They spent their time fixing their gear and guarding the wall. But when the first light of the morning became stronger and the days became longer, it was a sign that the campaign season was coming. To you, the sun is not just light. It is a promise that the green grass and the warm air are on their way back. It is a sign of hope. You stand in the silence, watching the shadows change. This is your moment of reflection. You think about how the sun is the great decider. It tells the owls to go to sleep and the larks to wake up. It tells the frost to melt and the fires to go out. You feel a deep sense of respect for the rhythm of the world. No matter how long the night is, and no matter how cold the wind blows, the sun always comes back. It makes you feel steady. You realize that you are like the sun in a small way. You show up every night. You do your job, and you stay steady until the work is done. You notice a micro-history detail on the ground near your feet. As the light grows, you can see the small plants that live near the stone walls. There is a patch of winter gorse, a tough bush with sharp thorns and tiny yellow flowers. Even now, with snow on its branches, the yellow petals are starting to show. They look like tiny drops of gold in the grey light. You reach out and touch a petal with your fingertip. It is cold and damp, but it is alive. It is the first bit of color you have seen in hours. It reminds you that even in the middle of a fortress of stone and iron, life is waiting to bloom. The light is becoming a soft, pearly grey. You can see the details of the fort clearly now. You see the smoke rising from the communal kitchen, where the bakers are already starting the morning fires. You see the shapes of the other towers along the wall, standing like quiet giants in the mist. The world is starting to stir. You hear the distant sound of a door opening and the muffled voice of a sergeant calling out a command. The night shift is melting away, replaced by the busy, noisy life of the day. You look back at the wall one last time. From down here in the courtyard, it looks even taller and stronger than it did when you were standing on top of it. It is a massive shield of stone that has protected you all night. You feel a sense of pride. You were the one who stood on that high line while everyone else was safe in their beds. You were the eyes of the Empire. Now that the light is coming, you can hand that job over to the world. The sun will be the watchman now. You adjust your grip on your spear and prepare to move the last few yards to your barracks. You feel a sense of peace that you haven't felt all night. The fear of the dark and the bite of the wind are gone. You feel a strange kind of love for this cold, windy place. It is a hard land, but it is a land that you know. You have walked its stones and breathed its air. You have become a part of the history of the wall. You reach the door of your barracks. You stop for a second and look at the eastern sky again. The thin silver line has turned into a soft orange glow. The stars are fading away, one by one. You take a final, deep breath of the morning air. It is still cold, but it smells of wood smoke and fresh bread. It is the smell of the end of the shift. You feel a wave of tiredness wash over you, but it is a good tiredness. It is the feeling of a job well done. You push open the heavy wooden door and step into the dim, warm hallway of the barracks. The sound of your boots is quiet here, softened by the thick timber floor. You are moving toward your bed, toward the warmth, and toward the rest you have earned. The sun is rising, the world is waking up, and your long watch is finally coming to an end. You are ready to close your eyes and let the light take over. You walk through the long, quiet hallway of the barracks, moving past the small rooms where your fellow soldiers are still lost in their dreams. The air here is thick with the scent of old wood and the dying embers of the central hearth. You reach your own bunk, a simple frame of sturdy oak with a mattress made of fresh, dry straw. You lean your spear against the corner, feeling the wood slide into its familiar resting place. You unbuckle your heavy belt, the bronze plates giving one last, soft jingle as you set it on the wooden chest at the foot of your bed. The weight leaves your body, and you feel as light as a feather. You sit on the edge of the straw mattress and reach down to untie your leather boots. Your fingers are still a bit stiff from the cold, but the knots come loose with a gentle pull. You slide your feet out of the leather, feeling the cool air on your wool socks. It is a wonderful feeling to finally be still. You pull your heavy wool cloak around your shoulders one last time, not to keep out the wind, but to hold in the warmth of your own body. You look at the small window high in the wall. The sky is now a soft, glowing pink, the color of a wild rose. The night shift is over. Here is a historical fact about your rest. A Roman soldier's life was very organized. When you finished your watch, you were given time to sleep and eat before you had to do your other chores, like cleaning the fort or practicing with your sword. The army knew that a tired soldier was not a good soldier. Because of this, the barracks were built to be as quiet and comfortable as possible. Even though you are on the edge of the world, you have a solid roof over your head and a warm place to lie down. You lie back on the straw, and it crunches softly under your weight. This is your final moment of reflection. You think about the 80 miles of stone and the thousands of men who have just finished their watch along with you. You think about the wall, standing strong and silent in the morning light. You have done your duty. You have been the watchman. You have seen the mist, the fire, the stars, and the snow. Now, you can let go. You feel a deep, heavy peace pulling at your eyelids. The world is safe. The morning is here, and your work is done. You notice a micro-history detail on your blanket. It is a thick, heavy piece of wool that has been dyed a deep red. In one corner, there is a small, hand-sewn repair made with a different shade of thread. It was done by your mother or perhaps a friend back in your home village. It is a tiny link to a world far away from the iron and stone of the wall. You pull the blanket up to your chin, feeling the scratchy, comforting warmth. It smells of home and safety. You take a slow, deep breath, and your mind begins to drift away from the cold hills and the windy walls. As you lie there, feel the weight of your body sinking into the soft straw. The long walk is over. The cold wind is now just a distant whisper outside the thick stone walls. You are safe. You are warm. You are tucked away in a place where nothing can reach you. Let the rhythm of your breathing slow down, matching the quiet heartbeat of the fort. The iron and the bronze are put away. The leather is dry. Your heart is steady and calm. The world is turning toward the light, and you are free to drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. The sounds of the morning are soft and far away. You can hear the distant call of a bird and the quiet footsteps of the day shift moving out to the wall. But those sounds are not for you. Your watch has reached its end. You have carried the torch. You have watched the dark, and you have stood your ground. Now, the sun will take over. The light is filling the rooms, and the shadows are hiding away. You are protected by the very wall you guarded. Close your eyes now, and let the warmth wash over you. The long night is finished, and the rest you have earned is finally here. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.